Everyone, welcome to the channel. Welcome to the show. I think we're live. We are live. Hey, look at that. It's amazing what a great upload can do for you. My internet might have gotten upgraded this week, but we'll talk about that in a second. Is Rett gone? God dang it. I thought Rett was screwing with me, but all of a sudden, Rett's not there anymore. Just lost power. Literally lost power. WTF. What the crap? What the heck? Can't even make that up. Oh my gosh. It's going to be one of those nights, I guess. Well, we'll get the intro out of the way anyway. Welcome to Talking Heads, everyone. Episode 359, your once-weekly live show for the latest in beer and tech news. I'm Jeff. He was supposed to be Rett. We'll see if Rett ends up joining us again. Or maybe we'll call him Mulligan and we'll get someone else on the line. But we'll see what happens. Your once a week live show for the latest in beer and tech news. If you've never seen the show before, we talk beer, we talk tech, we talk games, pop culture, entertainment, sometimes some Star Trek. All super chats are read on the air so long as they will not permanently demonetize the channel. We do drink alcohol on the show, and if you're drinking along with us, alcoholic or not, let us know in the chat, and we'll give some early show shoutouts as we go along. Last but not least, if you'd like to take part in the super secret chat and the even more super secret after party, think about joining the Patreon. Link is down in the video description. As a bonus, you'll get exclusive access to my Discord server, where you can chat with myself, John, Rett, Steve, the people who are normally here, all the hosts from Talking Heads, and join the awesome community that hangs out over there. And welcome to the show. And if you don't mind, for the next 30 seconds, I'm going to try to find a second co-host. We're going to do an at here. Anyone want to jump onto the podcast? Literally happening right now. Lost power. All right, we'll see if my call for help works. Otherwise, I guess it's just me tonight, and you get to see me all night long. We do have a good show up and planned. Oh, Tom Lawrence. What? Okay, hold on. I think we get a Tom on the show. Let me see if I can get Tom on. Where is my invite? I can get this. We can do this. All right. Copy. We might get a wild Tom to appear. Grabbing my drink, joining in about 2 minutes. Excellent. We got a Tom Lawrence on the show. How about that? Awesome. So cool. Well, we do have some news to get to, but we'll get to that in just a minute. For right now, what's everyone drinking out there in Chatland? What came after Kepler? After Kepler was Pascal. Maxwell, excuse me. Maxwell, Kepler, Maxwell, Pascal, Turing, Ampere, Ada, Blackwell. And somewhere in the middle of all that was Volta as a not really a release, but kind of a release. Crazy weather, windy as heck here tonight. Yeah, it was kind of windy like early this morning. And then, but most of the day's been like fine around here until about an hour ago. And all of a sudden there's like flood watches and high wind advisories. Like, I went to a tap house right before, I went and had dinner with a couple of friends and, went to a tap house. And on the way down there it was bright blue sky. The rain was just starting to kind of roll in, like a little bit of mist here and there. When I left, it was torrential downpour and 40-mile-an-hour gusts, like in the hour that I was in the tap house. So, yeah, it's going to be a little weird for a while, I think, weather-wise. Let's see. Rev, cracking a Mocha Death coffee stout from Horse Brewery in Ellensburg, Washington. 7%, 3.75 on Untapped. Mocha Death. Oh, Iron Horse. Yeah, that's Quilter's Irish Death. Yeah. I haven't had the Mocha Death. How is that? How is that one, Rev? So for those who don't know, Iron Horse Brewery, Ellensburg, Washington, they make a brew called Quilter's Irish Death. And it is one of my favorite. It is a strong Irish ale, or an Irish strong ale. And a couple of years ago, they started doing a whole bunch of different variations on it. They have a Cookie Death, which is a dessert cookie-inspired beer. They have an Aloha Death, where they brew their Irish Death with coconut.
Wait a minute here.
So Rett, if you are unstable, I actually have Tom Lawrence jumping on in here in just a minute as well. So we might get dual co-host,
Okay.
Or if you have to bounce out, that's totally cool as well.
I can, I'm on my phone. Trying to see.
Yeah, you have the flashlight handy.
I got a little. Let's see if I can. Okay, it sounds like PGE's outside too. So,
Awesome.
so we'll see. Hang on, I'm trying to figure out how to change my devices on my phone here. I don't know why I can't do that here.
Oh, there he is.
Hey, what up?
That's awesome. What's funny is I thought for a solid 30 seconds that you were just effing with me again, because you'll do that thing where you freeze when we're trying to do something or we're signing off, and you're like, I'm going to pretend my internet's out. And then you just didn't move.
Yeah, God, that's so funny. Yeah, I saw it when you didn't reply back to me, and I was like, "Wow, my power's out." I was like, "Uh-oh." Like, luckily, I had literally just charged my phone.
Yeah,
because it was at like 4%, so I had it going the whole time while we were getting ready. So I gotta. We'll see. I don't know if this will last very long or what, but
yeah. Well,
yeah, if Tom comes on, happy to swap out or tag out. Or I might drop out again on accident. Who knows? So.
Yeah, feel free to watch the show and chat along with us. I don't want to kill all your battery if it's going to be a lengthy delay, because I know how that goes.
That's true.
So,
that's true.
Yeah. But no, I literally jumped onto the YouTube Discord and I went, anyone want to jump on? Literally right now.
I got a good laugh too, because the last few shows I've had to bail last minute on Jeff that I was scheduled to do it. And I kind of made a joke with him this morning, like, oh yeah, like, of course I'm good. He checked right away. Hey, you still good? I'm like, yeah, I'm good. Don't stress, bro.
Yeah.
Dude, and on my end, it was uncanny because you were like, all right, let's do this. And then everything shut off.
That's great. No, I was just talking about how the weather has been kind of like nuts here. Like, I know Washington got hit a little bit last night or yesterday afternoon. Like, it was kind of windy and rainy up there. Well, I guess that storm finally hit us this evening. Because I went out to dinner and I was driving down there and it was still fairly sunny, but you could see the mist and a little bit of the rain rolling in. And then when I got out, it was torrential downpour and 40-mile-an-hour gusts. And I guess that's what we're going to get for the next, 18, 24 hours here. So...
Good Lord.
Hopefully my power holds out too. Knock on whatever wood is available.
There was a down tree earlier, and I was kind of surprised it didn't knock out power, because it had knocked over the power pole or tipped it over.
Uh-huh. But
the lines were still holding, the pole was, and so I'm sure the arborists are there now, and that's what's going on. So
yeah. Well, normally if I lost power, I would have some amount of time
Oh, because you got battery backups and everything.
Yeah. Yeah, so I have UPS units, and normally, if I like on a good day, I could probably last about an hour on UPS power out my servers, and then also here. He says he's here. Are you in the Zoom? Oh, there he is. I see you. All right.
Oh, he's hidden.
Cool. Hey, there he is.
It was yeah, I was like, I'm in the Zoom, I think.
Yeah.
All right.
Awesome. Yeah.
Well, cool.
I told Rett we'll let him go, so in case it's a long outage, he doesn't kill his phone talking to us.
Yeah.
So
I'll jump in chat, everybody. Thanks for the attempt, I guess.
yeah.
So
Well, it's good to see you, and I guess we'll catch up more next week.
yeah, sounds good.
Awesome.
All right. There it is. Peace.
All right. Oh, where did my... Hold on.
We broke them.
Hold on. Oh, there we go. Oh, that's right. I that's funny. So I have an overlay for you. I have the Lawrence Systems overlay. But
Cool.
But it's not my new overlay that also includes the cutout, so it's like rounded edges on the video. So I switched over to that, and it doesn't want to work. So
I can be Rett.
yeah, you can be Rett for tonight. I think that'll work. There we go. All right. You're Rett.
There you go.
Here I
And
thought
then
I was
this
super
place-
prepared. I'm like, hey, Tom's going to join, and I've even got an overlay for him. We can put his name on there. It's going to be good. No, it's the old overlay.
Yeah, you literally caught me as I just finished up setting up the new UNVR NAS Pro by Ubiquiti. I just
Okay.
finished setting it up, and I'm like, well, that seems to be doing a thing now, so I'm just going to grab a drink.
Yeah,
And then you
nice.
messaged. I seen the message, so.
Well, hey, welcome. Thanks for joining on such short notice. But we actually do have a news story I kind of wanted to pick your brain about, too. And
cool.
It's some more Broadcom VMware stuff. Some people are digging into the end user license agreement, and they're finding some things that are even more sketchy than we thought. That's come to light in the last couple of days. So
I can't be shocked by this.
I
Broadcom sketchy?
I can't either, right? But I was just about to open my beer. What do you got for a drink, though?
Ooh, this is some rye, Elijah rye, I think.
Oh, yes. Yeah, the single batch rye.
Yeah, single batch rye.
Nice.
That's caught me off guard. I was like thinking, because I actually, my gift all the time, whenever someone wants to get me something, I always say whiskey.
Yeah.
And then they realize I have a lot of them. But I had to think because I just got a nice custom one from Austin. That's where one of my clients is based. So now I have an Austin whiskey I just got too.
Oh, nice.
But I didn't pour that one yet. So
Nice. So I did some a little bit of contract work for a friend last month, and kind of bailed him out of a jam. And he goes, I'm going to buy you a bottle of whiskey. Like, I didn't charge him. I just said, yeah, I'll work for a couple hours for you. No problem. And he goes, I'm going to buy you a bottle of whiskey. What do you want? And I said, give me something rye. Dealer's choice. Like, I'm not even going to throw a bottle. And he got me a bottle of the Angel's Envy small batch rye Caribbean cask.
that I have not tried a Caribbean cask, but just the Angel's Envy rye makes me.
Holy
I've
crap.
got that in there. Oh,
That is
that's
such a
wonderful.
good bottle.
It is. It is.
So, Ethan, if you're watching, thank you. I have been enjoying the crap out of that. My beer for the evening, this was given to me actually this last weekend by Mr. Pink on my Discord server. So I went to PDX LAN this last weekend, and we had almost 20 people who were associated with my Discord in a single group at the LAN. And that was a heck of a good time. But Mr. Pink got me some beer. This is from the Brewing Project. I'm actually not sure where they are at. There's a sticker on the back that I think covered the town. But this is the There. So the 3 different versions of There. Dry hopped IPA with Nelson Sauvin, Citra, Mosaic, and Eldorado hops. And it's kind of a hazy-ish affair.
Yeah, when I got home, I had a my favorite Bell's Two Hearted. I think you've had that before, haven't you? Yeah, they're so good. It's just like my simple go-to.
Yes.
I had to pick up a pizza for my son, and all the Little Caesars in the area are somewhat of a disaster. They never have the pizza ready when they're saying, even though they got the little app and it tells you. So I was like, oh, let's go get a beer. So grabbed that from there, and then had the beer and Yeah. My son had to go to Micro Center with me. He's not really into tech much, but
Yeah.
because Micro Center is going to be a sponsor, I just had him take a bunch of pictures of me at Micro Center.
Oh, nice.
Just being stupid. And then he got kind of get into it. He's like, you are, because I crashed the car driving in a simulator and I couldn't figure out how to uncrash it. And he's like, Dad, you're supposed to, he likes games, but he doesn't like tech. He goes,
Right.
He's like, I feel like I'm following a child around. I said, you are.
Basically, yes.
Basically, yeah, pretty much.
It's funny. I've worked with Micro Center before, and in fact, I've had a couple of things that I pitched them on the last month or so. But the closest Micro Center is 940 miles away, almost equidistant. There's one in LA, and then there's another one in Denver, and they're both almost exactly 940 miles.
Wow.
And I said, one of these days, you just have to fly me out to one. Like I'll go out and I'll do a build and I'll do an in-person.
Pick the
thing.
Detroit one. We'll go hang out together.
Right. Yeah. Let's do Detroit. Let's head to Detroit and let's do something there. Yes. So, yeah, I keep threatening them to make them buy me a ticket.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what sketchy things did we find in the Broadcom license?
Oh,
I
the
haven't kept up with
Broadcom
that.
thing. Yes. By the way, Veronica's in chat. Hello, Veronica.
Oh,
and
awesome.
Also, Circuit Rewind. Vince was also at PDX LAN. And Veronica, if you're watching, that's the guy that I got a picture with who was wearing your shirt randomly one day when I was also wearing your shirt. I had the trackball person shirt, and he was wearing the 592B termination shirt.
Yeah. I see a lot of those, mostly on Twitter, people I follow in the InfoSec community,
Yeah.
but Veronica has tapped into that world, which I think is awesome.
Yes, yeah. It's one of my... I also have the 592 shirt, and it's one of my favorites, but I went to a LAN party, and I game on a trackball, and so I wore the trackball person shirt.
Gaming on a trackball, that's a story into itself.
One quick story. I do have to humble brag ever so slightly here. So we went to the LAN party, and I went, what do we want to play? And I went, screw it, let's go old school, because Vince brought a 100% period correct, water-cooled Windows 98 PC running a Voodoo 5500.
Oh, Voodoo cards.
Acrylic case, 100% custom cabling, all hardline tubing. The thing is absolutely gorgeous. But I went, well, what can we play that Vince would want to play so we can get him in with us? And so I went, screw it, let's fire up Duke Nukem 3D. And so we land Duke Nukem 3D with 10 or 11 or 12 people in just a death match. And Vince, the retro guy, won the first match. And I went, all right. And I won the next 4. On a trackball, and I didn't let people forget it all weekend. But you just lost an FPS game to a trackball.
That's some shit. Losing to someone playing on a trackball.
So, like I said, a little bit of humble brag. Anyway, Broadcom. This apparently was in their end-user license agreement maybe about 3 or 4 months ago, but it's starting to gain some more traction again because of some of the verbiage inside of it. Now, obviously, we all know the story about Broadcom bought VMware and wanted to instantly monetize it by holding customers hostage and changing all of their licensure and doing a whole bunch of, I don't even want to say vaguely sketchy, downright sketchy and bordering on criminal at times things with license agreements. Well, they have come under fire in the last couple of weeks for some addendums to their license agreement. This is their termination for convenience, applies to all regions. And I'm just going to read...
That title.
Yeah. I'm just going to read a couple of these pieces outright and kind of get your like gut reaction to this. Because this might be the first time that you're hearing some of this out loud. Customer may terminate the agreement that provided that customer also terminates each and all other agreements, indirect or direct, whether or not related to this agreement. What that means in layman's terms is, hey, Broadcom, we've been friends for a long time, but your VMware new licensing where you're charging me 3 times what you used to charge me, I'm not down with that. So I'm going to cancel my VMware agreement. This is Broadcom, the parent company, saying, well, if you don't continue that agreement, we're going to cancel all your other agreements too. That's essentially what this entire article states.
They're going like full Disney terms and conditions here.
Yeah, it really is. Like you were in an Uber crash on your way to Disney World. Well, it sucks that you signed up for a trial of Disney Plus 3 years ago.
Yes.
But we're no longer liable for that. Under which customer may procure any offerings in CA, Symantec, or VMware product families, but in all cases excluding any hardware offerings and associated support contracts therefore, together with each and all orders, however titled, in effect, except for in the case of VMware product family, blah, 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 between the parties as of date of termination. There's a whole bunch of like if then statements. On or after the termination date, and this is kind of standard, with the exception of any fully paid up perpetual licenses, which they don't offer anymore, they are requiring a customer to delete all full or partial copies of CA, Symantec, or VMware product family, including a deletion in a statement signed by a vice president or duly authorized representative and sent to usagereporting@broadcom.com. So they want it on record that a C-suite has verified you have deleted all licensure and you're no longer running any VMware products. But tied into the first section of this, not only VMware products, but CA or Symantec products as well upon termination of this single VMware agreement. Further down, it actually also applies for a period of 2 years.
Wow. So they're dragging in other intellectual property owned and sticking you with 2 years. Like just
sticking you with 2 years of you also can't buy or install VMware products or any of our other related properties for a period of 2 years after terminating this agreement. So if you're going to call it curtains, you call it curtains for good.
There's a part of me that wonders if there's like a club out there in Silicon Valley where Oracle hangs out along with the Broadcom people and a few others in that same cohort that just come up with the most evil ways they can do it. And trust me, Disney's hanging out with them too, taking notes. She's like, all right, what is the most egregious thing you can come up with? Yeah, write that one down. Like, it is like truly a meeting of evil lawyers and what they can put in terms and conditions. That's how I feel about them.
Yeah. So yeah, like I haven't worked in the MSP space in almost 5 years now, which is kind of crazy to say, but I still have a lot of friends who are.
That's why you're smiling so much.
That's why I'm smiling so much, because I can laugh at this kind of stuff now.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, if you are in a position where you're being held, captive essentially by VMware license agreements, and they've doubled or tripled or quadrupled your license payments year over year. But you also have products like Backup Exec or anything else like that you're relying on that's completely outside of your licensure of VMware. They're saying if you cancel us, you cancel everything, and we will cut off any and all product support and any and all licenses to you for a period of 2 years.
It's pretty wild. I see someone in the comments saying that they're trying to put the smaller MSPs out of business. If you try to stick with Broadcom, yes. The other side of it is we've done an absolute amazing number of migrations over to XCP&G. Mm-hmm. My team, because I was following up on looking at some of the tickets they had open tonight, because we're finishing a data center migration. I'm talking like not just small businesses, but large enterprises and data centers moving over to it. It has been like right place, right time. I've been backing XCP&G since it was a Kickstarter in 2017. Like I just happened to be right place, right time, because when the whole world came crumbling down, when the purchase was going to happen to the point where it is now, people started contacting us, and we have seen just an incredible. We've had to keep hiring more people for the volume of business, and some of it's just about the VMware migration. So it's been kind of cool. That's why I kind of doubled down on XCP&G. People are like, "Why do you do videos on that? It doesn't get a ton of views." And Proxmox, everyone loves it. And I got no hate for Proxmox at all. I think it's a good product, but for the scale we're operating at, with people moving like a few thousand VMs, the XCP&G's held up really well for this. I mean, these are, like I said, racked in data center type projects.
Yeah. I love I love Proxmox, but I've said this many times in a lot of different videos that I've done. I'm not ever sold or committed to a single product, where I definitely have preferences because they work with my own infrastructure or my own, vision for how I build things. That doesn't mean I'm exclusive. You know,
Right.
I run Mac, Windows, and Linux desktops here at my house. I run Proxmox and TrueNAS both in my rack, but I don't discriminate against. I've done videos on Hyper-V. I don't think I've done any videos on XCP-ng, but I'm aware of it, and I know it's a great product. And
Yeah. I think you did a couple Citrix ones early on, like years ago when you were doing some of it, because you were doing some of the testing pass-through. I mean, it was like back when it was still Citrix.
Yeah, I've done some VMware stuff. And no, I did dabble in one of my pass-through videos with XCP-ng. That's right. Or with Citrix. With
Citrix.
With with that whole thing. Because the old Kepler-based virtual GPU virtualization was a tie-in with either VMware or Citrix, and so you had to use their software for it.
Yeah, because they had some of the Citrix had a bunch of those proprietary drivers and pass-through features. Because I remember I watched that particular video because I was interested in it. 'Cause we've been servicing since maybe 2016 or 2015 clients using the Citrix system. That's actually what led me to Zen, was that kind of feature. And then I found Zen Orchestra, and the rest is a lot of, well, there's plenty of history you can find on my YouTube channel about it. And someone asked the question, how do I convince decision makers? I'm going to make a video soon, but first, I've talked a lot about it, but I'm going to make some specific enterprise videos about it to show the use cases. I've talked about it in some of my videos, but we have some permission to use some customer data, at least to show that we're doing it. Because, I mean, the project's about $600,000. There's a little bit of hardware involved. It's going to be a fun project, and I'll be documenting it. So if that doesn't convince them that it's working for companies that working at that scale, they're not convincible.
Right. I used to say I used to make a lot of money getting paid to rip Cisco out of places.
Yeah.
And it's not that Cisco didn't make good hardware, but it very much like the Broadcom situation today, they get entrenched into an enterprise and then no one knows how to pull them out for a couple of different reasons. Number one, they're afraid to stop paying that license fee because, well, you're telling us we can move to software that's free. I don't trust it.
Right.
And so there is a little bit of convincing that, like, no, you're getting raked through the coals. It's not that it's a better product. It's just that they're taking advantage of you. But number two is we started implementing a lot of open source solutions and basically using standards-based approaches and doing full documentation on things. So you don't have to rely on hiring a Cisco guy or hiring a VMware guy to manage your stack, even if you decide to keep us or if you don't decide to keep us. Like, we'll come in and we'll install something for you. And if you want to pay us to maintain it and be your regular service providers, we're happy to do that work. If you don't, here's your documentation that you can hand to your internal staff or whatever other support team you want to go with. It's all there and it's all written down and it's all standards-based stuff. Like, anyone with two brain cells to rub together should be able to read through it and go, oh, I understand exactly the implementation here. And you can't really do that with Cisco stuff, and you can't really do that with VMware stuff. They have so many proprietary tool sets. But if you go with XCP-ng or TrueNAS or Proxmox or any of the other open, hypervisors, it's a lot more standards based, and it's a lot easier for an outsider to walk in and go, I understand XYZ, exactly what they're implementing. Okay, let's rock. And so that was one of the biggest things for us for convincing decision makers to pull the trigger on getting rid of some of these enterprise implementations. It's like, you're no longer vendor locked into a support contract or a particular team to be able to service your equipment.
And that's really the big part there is not having to worry as much about the only way to backstop this is through the vendor because we can document it internally. But it's been interesting to watch because we're also a Meraki reseller, and Meraki has lowered their price over the years. No one thought that was coming, but it's a direct result of companies like Unify and that coming in and people going, why was I? We had a school district that lost the bid to Meraki. The license fee renewal was $25,000 a year for the school discount, $25,000 a year, and they said that's a lot to renew all the licenses, and ended up switching to Ubiquity. And I've actually followed up on that project. Is that we did almost 3 years. It'll be 3 years in December that we did that project, and the customer's going, works great. No problems. It's amazing. It just took a lot of convincing because everyone's like, oh, we know that name Cisco. They're a big publicly traded company. But one of the things you can really point to with Ubiquiti, I don't know if you know this, their market cap is now over $20 billion.
Yeah.
They're not exactly a mom and pop shop.
No. But what's funny is some of my largest customers used to be school districts. And we actually had one particular instance that a school was quoting an entire rip and replace for like Cat 3 and Cat 5 infrastructure to Cat 6A because their wiring was so degraded and everything else. And so we were looking at like 2,000, 2,500 access points and drops and new switching infrastructure and everything else. And they're like, well, what if we went with, so I as the vendor as the service provider had to sit down with Meraki and Cisco and Aruba and all these other companies and get their quotes. And we were getting quotes from Meraki for like $370,000 for hardware and licensing for 2 years, and then like $140,000 license renewal, year over year kind of thing. And then we would get a quote from Unify, and they'd go, "Yeah, it's $80,000 in hardware."
Yep, that's it.
That's it.
One time. Should have a life cycle 5 to 7 years. You need to replace it.
Yep. But $80,000, one-time commitment, you're done. Yeah. But then convincing the decision makers, like, well, that seems just absurdly low. Like, are you sure? Yes, I'm positive. Please don't make me install these other.
Because I might do a follow-up video because one of the things about school bids, we're external to the school, so like you were a contractor to it.
Yeah.
A lot of the bid information becomes public record afterwards.
Yep.
And we learned the other bidders, and we learned how we weren't playing the same game they were. Like it was because all of them bid Cisco or Meraki, and it's like our bid was in just a little over $300,000 for the project, and we're looking at the other ones going, wow, they were like 450, 480. One person was 700, and we're like, what? I don't know. I didn't dig into it deep. I was like,
what were they selling them?
Yeah, I was like, someone's retiring off this project.
Yeah.
Like, I don't pretty wild.
Yeah, someone's got a third house to pay off, it sounds like.
Yeah, it's like this project, we can make like 200,000 in profit off it, 300,000 in profit. Why not? Just keep running that number up.
As me and my other network guy used to joke back and forth whenever a situation like that came up, we're in the wrong business, man.
Sometimes, man.
We would always look at vendors and what they're charging, and the common joke in the office was, man, we are in the wrong business.
Yeah, if we follow, we benchmark ourselves against other companies to see that our margins are rational, reasonable.
Right.
Because that's always, when you start to scale a little bit, you always want to make sure that you're doing things well, and we try to pay our people really well, and we think everything's good, and we're winning the bid and being at a best-in-class margins, at least what we consider best-in-class based on benchmarking with our peers. And we're like, how did this person bid that much? Like,
yeah.
There's like best-in-class, and there's what that guy charges.
Right. And what's funny is you look at those outrageous bids, like 700,000, when you say you can do it for literally less than half. You're bidding 300, they're bidding 700. You're going, are we not charging enough? Am I not paying my people enough? Are we buying inferior material? Like, you really do start to go through your own business practices and internals and go like, are we cutting ourselves short or anyone else along the way? Because I also don't want to be about that. And then you're like, no, this guy's just an asshole.
Yeah. And yeah, sometimes that's what it comes down to.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
So, yeah, the Broadcom, man.
I know they've had to back things off a little bit in the EU because they got in a little more trouble there.
Yeah.
And I think they overestimated the stickiness that people have for it. There's actually some alternatives out there, not just the ones we talked about like Proxmox, NextCP, and G, but there are other companies out there. I mean, I find it really interesting. Nutanix had lost money since their inception. They have been bleeding and riding on VC, funding and things like that. And their first profitable year is, by the way, they were also trying to sell, but that was like, if you Googled their name prior to the VMware incidents, you would find notices like they're looking for acquisition. Please buy
Right.
us because we're going to run out of money, and some investors kind of want to return. They turned their first profitable year here in 2024.
Nice. Yeah.
Thank you, VMware.
Yeah,
'Cause
and
people don't expect that.
had Broadcom done the acquisition of VMware, let's say 2019, and then pulled this exact same practice, I think they would have had the stickiness with a lot of the clientele. But it just so happens that a lot of open source has gotten so good as to be able to scale to enterprise. Not including just Proxmox and everything else, but you look at projects like OpenStack and things like that, where you can literally scale to 10,000s of clients, and they go, yeah, it's built into the infrastructure, it just works. They tried to pull the move, but they pulled it 13th hour. Had they pulled it 3, 4, 5 years ago, we would be talking a whole different conversation about, yeah, VMware's expensive, but they're also the only player that can scale to this amount. That's not the case these days.
Yeah, the world's changed quite a bit over the last 5 years.
Mm-hmm.
Even the shift from work from home, things moving to web applications, and it's kind of the excuse some companies had to get rid of some of the legacy things they were doing.
Yeah.
We're also weirdly seeing people move away from the cloud. That's been really interesting. Basecamp has been the most transparent about it. If you follow the company behind Basecamp called 37 Signals, I like that they just did another follow-up on it because they moved from the cloud almost 4 years ago now. But I like how they first titled the one follow-up they did like 3 years after they moved on the cloud. We thought we would save $5 million for moving from the cloud, but we were completely wrong. We saved 7. It went way better than expected. And now here we are a few more years later, and they're talking about it. And I've been doing more consulting on companies that are moving from the cloud. That's actually been a lot of big things we've been doing. Is here companies that just don't move into it. They start realizing that they're running their own data center. We work with some automotive companies, and being here in Detroit, one of them's just realized that they got a calculator. It doesn't take too much math to do this. And they go, renting's expensive and security is a risk. We can build this ourselves for less than the cloud bill is going to be within 1 year. So even though it sounds like a big investment because they bought 3 petabytes of storage from us, you're like, that's a lot. And then they go, no, when you add up what it will cost, they said the cloud bill, the ROI is less than a year. Paying us to build it, it's less than a year to do this. Pretty wild.
Sorry, I just had to raise my eyebrow because I just got a random... I was literally thinking earlier today, I need to reach out to companies to get my CES trip sponsored. I literally just got a random invitation. We're going to pay for your flight and hotel.
Nice.
I hadn't even sent an email yet, and someone goes, yeah, we got it.
The AI system pulled it out of your head.
I can't tell you who, but you're on the right track.
Okay. That's funny.
Okay.
I've never been to CES. I don't know. Maybe I should go. When is
it? I recommend it. It's January 5th. It's basically the second week of January 6th through 10th this year.
Okay. I've never been to Vegas in my life, so
I should get you to Vegas. I think you'd enjoy it. Yeah.
I don't like casinos. That's my problem.
Neither do I.
It's like ding, 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 and my eyes are like, get me out of this place.
Yeah. It is a lot of stimulation. You walk through the casinos, but you meet people in the hotel suites. And so you walk through a casino to get onto the elevator to go to a quiet room to walk through with people.
Fair enough.
And so there's basically like 3 venues that CES happens at. There's the main Las Vegas Convention Center, which is like 4 buildings, and it's absolutely massive. And that is every vendor from, the main players, Intel, NVIDIA, AMD, they'll all have like massive booths there and experiences and things. LG and Samsung, they always have like these massive TV walls of OLEDs and like tunnels you can walk through and crap.
It just seems like a fun experience to do all. That's the part that I would look forward to.
It's a really fun experience. A lot of people who go there just to cover tech companies go like, God, I hate going to this floor. go to the floor and walk around for a day. It's enjoyable. Like, it's really a lot of fun. And
it's just all this novel tech with good design and architecture to it, and I so appreciate the good aesthetics of things. And that part I would truly enjoy. That's why I want to go.
We got into this because we're enthusiasts about tech, right?
Yeah.
Why would I pass up an opportunity to walk around and see the latest things from every angle of technology that exists in the world?
Yeah, even though I don't focus on, my channel's not a focus at all on covering consumer technology, it's still interesting. Yeah. But there's things like this, like I'm holding the Unified Cloud Key. Yeah. Like, this is not some box. This is a nice metal. It's got some design. I like the aesthetic of it. I appreciate things like this, having a little bit more design than you might expect. Like, even the way the little thing slides out, like, this is well made. I forgot there was a spinning Rust hard drive in this.
Look at that.
This thing's been on my desk for a while. I've been doing a bunch of lab rebuilds, so I've got a bigger mess than usual for things. So I have to do a bunch of migrations. This is like finalizing stuff since I merged my company with another company a year ago. And I finally got around to like, we're redoing the whole lab. We're redoing all these things that you kind of collected over time. So sorting all that out's been a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Which means I'm actually we're building a big giveaway for all the employees. Once the employees are done, I don't know, maybe I'll give it away in my channel. We have so many things from Unify that I don't know what to do with.
Yeah.
I mean, they're not going to be the latest ones because we're moving stuff to like U7, but like they're like a year old modules, or even this one's a U6 long range.
Oh, nice.
Like, yeah. We have stacks of this stuff. Some of it came from projects and things like that, so I'm trying to get it all organized. That's the hard part.
Yeah.
You know how it is. As I know, me and you talked before about all the case problems you have when reviewing cases. You're like, now what do I do with all these?
Yeah. Yeah, I have tried very much over the last year or so to go almost entirely project-based, not necessarily review-based, where if someone wants me to review something, I go, okay, can I include that in a larger project? Is that something that will serve me around the house, or I can include in a larger set of videos. So if you have a case to review, cool. Let me feature your case in a build video that I build a PC and I give that PC to a family member. Because I don't want it here. And I know that sounds one percenter, and it kind of is, but at the same time, do you realize how many unopened Fractal and MSI and Gigabyte and Be Quiet cases I have out in my shed? I have like 9 cases that were sent over for review that I haven't even broken the seal on because I didn't have anything to do with them. And the way I review things is not just opening it and going, yeah, that looks great. If it's a case, I build a PC in the case. Am I going to build the same PC in 9 different cases? No, that's stupid. No one's going to want to watch that. And so, it has to be based around a project. And so I've started rejecting anything that I can't actively use or isn't interesting to me.
Yeah, it's becoming a little bit of a challenge. I had to tell Ubiquity to slow down. I did some advising and talking to them, and I've been happy they've been talking to the community and interacting with me, and it's been really a great two-way street. But they sent me everything, and then they sent me sometimes 3 of things and 4 of things. Do you know how many cloud UDMs I have? There's a stack over here. Like,
do you have any UCIs? Because I need a UCI.
Ooh, well, I might have one of those. I'll look. We will talk. I will.
Cool.
At some point, I think I need to give them back to you, all my YouTube friends, because I'm like, I did the video. What do I do with 4 UDM Pros?
Right.
Currently, the employees are going to take some of them. I know 2 of them I have aren't released yet, so shh.
Yeah.
There's 2 more things coming.
Yeah, I've already got a UDM Pro. I've got UA6 Pros throughout the house. I've got 3 of those mounted. I've got a couple Unify cameras. I've got 3 switches, of which I think I'm not using any because I already had solutions in place. I've already got like a MikroTik PoE switch with 10 gigabit backhaul, and it's like I wasn't going to install the 48 port Unify because I'm only going to use 2 of those ports.
I have Unify 100 gig switches.
Nice. Yeah, I haven't had their 100 gig switches yet, but I already have 100 gig switches.
Yeah, you already have 100 gig switches.
Like, yeah.
Completely 1% first world problems here. Like,
Totally.
what do I do with all these 100 gig switches they sent me?
Another, put it in the pile.
I got them plugged in. We're actually, I did tell them, and I will do an MC lag video. Because matter of fact, we just did I got to follow up on this because I never really spent much time with fs.com switches. We have some of those, and because one of the techs at the office said they were pretty familiar with them.
Yeah.
They're not great. We'll just, even the person who's familiar with them has decided some of the bugs we've run into means they're not great.
Yeah. They reached out for some reviews and potentially some sponsorship maybe a couple of years ago, and I ran into some bugs and had to kind of pump the brakes on it a bit. And
they're quirky.
Yeah, they're quirky.
They're more quirky than MikroTik.
Right. I said MikroTik is quirky, but MikroTik I can stand behind because at least the base functionality is 100% rock solid. And there are edge cases that are a little buggy, but you understand for a third the price of, an Aruba switch or whatever, you deal with maybe not using that edge case. Like there's a gradient of acceptability.
And there's a pretty cool there's a guy in my forums who posts about MikroTik. He uses them in the WISP market. And I really like because he's not negative on them. He's very familiar with them. He's answered a lot of people's MikroTik questions. But I do there's a post he had that just made me really chuckle when someone says, should I go MikroTik or Unify? And he says, just go Unify. It'll be easier. But I'm a complete MikroTik person. I'm an expert at them. But let me explain what's going to happen when you start trying to do these things. You're going to search. You're going to find a secret incantation in one of the forums. You're going to copy and paste it in. It's going to work. No one's going to explain why that command works and why it solves your problem. You'll just accept that it is. And that's how MikroTik is.
Yeah. Yeah. One of MikroTik's biggest problems with a lot of their switches for years and years is they would advertise 16 port 10 gig distribution switch. And they would go layer 3 compatible, but if you turned on layer 3, you would get 200 megs. And it's because they didn't have enough horsepower behind their switching infrastructure that they just shut down. They just wouldn't work. And so if you're doing layer 2, if you're doing, kind of type switching, it's fantastic. It gives you all the bandwidth in the world. But as soon as you try to do anything with those packets in flight, it's got nothing.
Yeah, and I wish it was available on all of them. It's available on a lot of them, not every one. If I'm looking at MikroTik switches, I look for SwitchOS.
Yeah.
SwitchOS simplifies it, and most of the time, all I really need is some VLAN management, some basics. Matter of fact, I've had a couple times where I've not really had to do any configuring because the only thing MikroTik is providing is some switching fabric for things like storage arrays. Works fine. And those are basic functionality that you don't really have any problems. So it always comes down to the use case. Like, do you need those advanced use cases? Well, you better Google it. You better spend some time in the forums. Make sure it's the right choice.
Yeah.
But if you have a less advanced use case, and like you said, you just need some layer 2 functionality, MikroTik fits the bill for that. And reliability, like hardware-wise, I haven't had any hardware failures with them. And they do have ones with redundant power supplies and things like that I think really fit the price. I mean, I see someone calling them garbage. And by the way, the other project we're doing is all Arista 100 gig. What do you think those Arista 100 gig switches cost us? I mean, they're 29. I'm going to do a video on that project too. They're $29,000 each.
Yeah.
For these switches that are sub like 5,000. The MikroTik version, $29,000 for each switch. Client, I think, needed 6 of them. So they have the budget for that. And don't get me wrong, I think it's nice, but once again, not in the same category. I mean, $29,000 because that includes the licenses they needed. Because everything's a license, including like the management view that they wanted. That's a license too. So I think the Switch started at like 25,000. Oh, you would like a pretty menu for it? Well, that's an upsell for you.
Yeah. I have in my office 3 MikroTik switches. By the way, Thad Rummer says, it's MikroTik. No, actually, no. It's MikroTik.
Yes.
When you speak to the people in Latvia, it's MikroTik.
Yes.
I've had conversations with the engineers. It's MikroTik.
Yep. It's fun because I love that argument.
I do too.
I met through a series of just not a tech guy, but he happened to be, his name is Latvian. So I ended up striking up a conversation with him, and he was shocked I knew about the country. And so it just became a good conversation starter. But I told him it was because of MikroTik, and he's familiar with the company. I guess if you live there, even if you're not in tech, you're familiar with the famous company MikroTik.
Yeah. So. One of my favorite things ever was I lived in an area of Oregon that has the largest population of Old Believer Russians in the country. And so it's like there's this little pocket, like throughout the country, you'll have like little pockets of cultures that kind of develop and from immigration and whatnot. And it happened to be that the pocket that I lived in was Old Believer Church Russian. And so I grew up knowing a lot of Russian people, learning a lot of Russian names. And one of the flute players in my band, her last name was Rybarczyk. Although if you look at the name, it's not spelled like that. And one day I'm working, gosh, where was this? It was at, I was doing film photo development, to tell you how long I've been alive. I still did film processing as a job. A customer came and needed to pick up some photos, and I said, name and whatnot. She goes, oh, it's RYB. And I said, oh, Rybarczyk. And she goes, how did you know that? And I went, 2 reasons. I probably know one of your family members, and number 2, I lived here. And she goes, holy crap. Long story short, it's MikroTik.
Yep. I don't know if I shared it in our group chat that we have amongst our YouTubers, but I'm probably going to do a video about it with the bearded IT dad. You see that CompTIA got bought, right?
Yes.
Yeah, that's been interesting.
Mm-hmm.
So the CompTIA brand got bought, but not the nonprofit trade organization.
Ooh. So how's that going to work?
Yeah, it's really interesting. So for I know probably a lot of your people here may not know me, but for a little background, there's 2 divisions of CompTIA. There's the one that very publicly is known in the tech community in terms of like your certifications. Those are your CompTIA A+, Network Plus, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
The other side of CompTIA is the ISO and Trustmark. And what they are is they focus on certifying businesses and hold a lot of community meetings. And I've been on boards for that. And it's unrelated. It's funded by, but directly unrelated, run by completely different people with a different president and everything else of that type of organization. And what they do is they provide cybersecurity intelligence to IT companies and to the managed service provider space. So the space that I work in, that's just how I got involved with them.
Yep.
So it's really interesting because the concept of Trustmark is that Trustmark will certify companies. It's kind of like how you want to go to a mechanic and you're like, what do I take my car? There's the Bob's Garage down the street, but then there's other, Joe's Garage, but he says AEC certified, AES certified mechanics, the industry standards for that. And you go, well, I want to take my place as certified. Yeah. Same thing with a lot of like, we want not just a realtor, someone who's doing that. We want someone certified by the board of realtors. And so the concept was CompTIA was going to do that with their trade organization is this IT company is Trustmark Plus certified, which means they follow certain guidelines. They've been audited to make sure they're following those guidelines. But it's all funded by the CompTIA brand, and the idea was the CompTIA brand. So I managed to get myself in some trouble because I seen the private equity announcement. I did not see, because there was not communications from the people involved. So I went nuclear on LinkedIn. This brought anger to people that knew me because, by the way, I'm no longer on any CompTIA boards. This is, I happened to run into a couple of them, and he says, I don't know if I want to punch you or hug you, Tom. That's how the conversation started. And I did post today a little bit of a clarification on some of that because it doesn't make it any better. It just makes it different. So the good news is the trade organization received a big endowment from a private equity company. So the trade organization plans to continue doing the things they're doing, but the certificates have now been sold. The branding has been sold. And that is the part that really annoys me, because there's only one way private equity firms handle things, and that is raise prices. How do you get money out of that investment? Well, you kind of have the only, and maybe people don't realize this, if you want a vendor neutral certification, there's only one organization, and CompTIA has been around for 42 years as a vendor neutral cert. So it's not a Cisco cert, it's not a Microsoft cert, it is a general computer knowledge cert that you can get. That's kind of expected. You know, if you're hiring someone, you're like, I don't know, we got to, for an example, we were just hiring a couple more techs at my company. We had 300 resumes come in. You kind of need to sort that out. We're not that big of a company that I have a team to dedicate to resume sorting.
Right.
Like, we only have like...
Well, you go, hey, HR? Oh, wait, that's me. Okay.
Oh, yeah, that's right. I have to sit down and interview these people. So you use these as qualifiers going, all right, so these people, like, they've never done really much in tech, but at least I know if they've passed their A+, they passed their Net+. Oh, good, you got some understanding. You went through some understanding of these technologies. That narrows it down. It's not an absolute requirement, but hey, it narrows it down. Mm-hmm. But now all of a sudden... and I see someone mention, and are absolutely right about this, Security Plus is big in DoD jobs. Mm-hmm. So that's a very valid point. But one of the reasons that CompTIA built this trust was because they're vendor neutral. It doesn't require you to know specifically about a vendor to pass the test. It's like you were saying earlier, all done to standards. Yeah. There are very clear RFC standards that build these things. So it's kind of a big concern that they've moved away from this because what happens is, these certifications, they're going to be the same for a while. So this isn't going to happen today. I'm thinking long term. They make changes, and maybe the private equity firm gets paid a little bit and goes, we'd like to push this towards certifying Cisco people because that would make us more money. And then all of a sudden, the vendor neutral kind of drifts off a little bit, and it'll be sad to see when that starts happening. And people have been telling me I'm wrong and it won't happen. Blah blah blah. Private equity firms are not my favorite people. So go back to our Broadcom conversation.
Right.
Broadcom's a tech company. Broadcom's a private equity firm posing as a tech company.
Yes, that's exactly right. And they're wanting returns inside of 3 years.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, they generally want really accelerated time. They're not doing long-term community investments. They're
right.
How do we squeeze more out of this? And it's not like they need more money. I feel it's like a game. Like it's the ultra wealthy game of who while we're all sitting on our yacht sipping our fanciness, like how do we like brag that I made more money than you?
Yeah.
Like I have 2 private jets now. Well, I got 3. I was able to raise the price of training that was required by the DoD because I bought a locked-in market and just doubled the price and doubled my investment. Like, oh wow, you're smart. And then of course the Oracle and Broadcom people, lawyers are all hanging out taking notes too.
Right.
I don't mean to be negative. I love technology. It's those management people I don't like.
I love technology, but money sucks.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's
money for the sake of money. That's what I always call
money
it.
for the sake of money. Right? No, that is such a fantastic way to put that.
Yeah, it's just like money to me is ink in the pen to write the story. Let's do something fun. Let's buy something. Let's build something. Let's educate the community. Let's show people this cool project we built to give you some ideas of how you can build it too. And those are the exciting things to do with money. But just money for who's got the biggest number, that doesn't sound interesting to me.
Right. Did I tell you something really exciting? I've kind of teased this a little bit here on the channel, but my temperature sensors. We should have news releasing on those in the next couple of weeks or so, as far as potential availability and where they're going to be available for sale and things like that. I also have a new name for them, an official like product brand name that I registered a website for, and I'm working on branding for that and everything. Like,
awesome.
It's a full thing. We're also going to open source the firmware.
That is amazing.
Because that's the right thing to do.
That is the right thing.
It's the right thing to do. And I fought against a number of people for that, even despite my own like feelings on open source. Like everything should be open source. And I went, no, this is a commercial venture. Like I want money. Wait. Jeff, you should probably open source the firmware. And so we're going to.
I think people get really worried about it. It's Jeff Gilling did a good video just the other day talking about how the was it the Rock chip? I think it was the developer for that kind of going AWOL.
Yeah.
There's I've been working on this for a while. So I have a ton of notes, and I might title the video something along the lines of like open source is in trouble. And it's really a problem right now because we're looking at about 60% of the open source developers don't even get paid. And these are people who run critical projects that support a lot of things like, Python libraries and the things and tools we use to build things. And it's I like to encourage more open source as much as I can, but it's one of those things like I do realize the other side of the coin. What makes people want to hesitate towards it is we're watching all these companies kind of pull back a little bit. Yeah, and that is exactly it. Oh man. I actually encourage everyone to listen to the Open Source Security podcast. They talk about this topic, or at least it comes up almost every episode. The last episode is about some of the challenges in the open source market, but they've had several. They have one, I think it's called Open Source is Getting Gray. And the problem is each year the age of the developer goes up. That means we're not bringing in new ones to average that out.
Yeah, the median age is increasing.
Yeah. Because there was a guy getting some real hate, and I can't remember, this was like 2 or 3 episodes ago, and they're like, please quit harassing this man. He was a developer for a long time. He's in his 80s. He's like, I am retiring from doing this project, and no one wants to take it over. And people are like, but please, I need my pull request done. He's like, I'm in my 80s. I don't want to do your pull request anymore.
Someone else needs to do this.
Yeah, I'm a lone developer in my 80s. Please let me be.
Yeah. No, so I will say, from someone who is creating a project that I hope will be a very successful commercial venture, I was approached by a company and they said, we want to see you do this open source. And I said, well, no, because it's a commercial venture. And I have a thing that may have a limited lifespan because because I'm challenging the status quo. That's what my product is going to be doing. And as soon as other companies that I'm challenging figure that out, they're going to change their market strategy and edge me out of the market. And I understand my window is very limited. And so I have something that's worth something right now. And I went, open source that? Are you kidding me? No, this is my breadwinner. This is the thing that's going to put my kids through college and make sure I can pay off my mortgage. And then I kind of got slapped in the face, and it's like, no, but you've said for 10 years on YouTube now, these projects should be open sourced. And if you want to trust a company, the firmware should be open source and it shouldn't be vendor, dependent. I spent my entire 15-year career in IT basically teaching my customers to be vendor agnostic. So you're not locked in with a single hardware vendor. And here I am, because there's a call of money out there, trying to become vendor, trying to be the only source for this thing. And I went, I'm literally fighting against the thing that I've been preaching for. And that's not a good move. And
it's tough.
It is
really
tough.
I'm not going to lie. It's really tough.
Yeah.
And, I made the decision. We give away like the biz, I have a second channel where we just talk about business, and people are shared that because the amount of money we are probably costing consultants, because there's always business consultants that people hire, and we've helped so many people just by giving away any details for how we do things on the business channel. And that concept flows over. I always give away things on the channel, but it's a lot easier. I'm not developing proprietary code, but there's a lot of things you put into structure to business and then to give that template away or how you do something.
Right.
It's hard, but it's like, I don't want to be a hypocrite to all the things I talk about. The other side of it is, like I said, the open source being in trouble, I do worry about what the future looks like for open source, because if we don't have a bunch of fresh young developers coming in, and I see companies, and Jeff's phrase, it's the makers and the takers. This is where the problem is that he used in that video, because you look at, and people complain about the license changes. Was it called SSPL license that Mongo did and a few others did?
Yeah.
Because what they do is they don't want to offer any of the hosting anymore. But you're also, what do you do? Because if you're trying to fund it by offering hosting, for example, Graylog, you're like, hey, we will offer hosting, or Elastic. Which surprisingly, Elastic has come back the other way. They adopt these licenses because places like AWS are like, we'll host it for cheaper. And they're like, wait a minute, we already are hosting on AWS and marking it up. That's how we pay our developers. Right. And AWS goes, yeah, we can cut that part out. We'll just take your code and make it a product, and we'll sell it on the Amazon marketplace, and then we'll charge for hosting. And Amazon's move around that was really damaging to the company. And the same thing with Graylog. Amazon started getting around them, so they changed their license. And then there's people that were calling me out, Tom, Graylog is just called Graylog Open. It's not Graylog open source because it doesn't follow GNU. And I'm like, I don't hate them for it because it's a great product. And how do they fund it? They're not some massive company. Matter of fact, if you want to scratch your head, when you realize the Apache Foundation only runs on several $1 million a year, you're like,
oh yeah,
the Apache and all the things Apache does, which is more than just a web server.
You say several. No, it's like 4.
Yeah, it's like 4 million a year. Like, that's the entire Apache budget for all the things. And you're like, oh, yeah. That probably is a problem.
And you say Apache, yes. And every single one of the people watching this stream right now knows exactly who that is and what project that is and everything else. They operate on $4 million a year. Development, advertising, marketing, security, everything. $4 million a year. That does not go far.
Yeah, and that's actually what someone just said, maybe a license that blocks commercial use without permission. Well, that's exactly what the SSPL does.
Yeah.
And people are like, that company's evil. I can't believe they didn't just use a GNU license or copy left. And I'm like, it's a protective move, because that's essentially, it says here, home users, by the way, you can use Graylog all you want. Yeah. Individual like to use it open source, no problem. But what you can't do under the SSPL, and I'm not an expert at this, but I know the lawyers will leave comments and hate me. But my understanding of it is, and I say my understanding, I'm not a lawyer, I'm not your lawyer, so whatever, flame me in the comments. My understanding is it does not allow you to host it and then
yell at Leonard French, not at me.
Yeah. So it was a blocker to stop companies from hosting and reselling it. So even myself, I can use Graylog and you can use Graylog, but I can't host it on your behalf and charge you as a service for it, because if you want that done, well, then you should contact Graylog, because that's how they fund the development of it. And I don't think that's unreasonable. No. I see so many people hating on these companies, and I'm like, I don't know. It's a survival move. It's not like Graylog's got 10,000 employees. They're a pretty small team. They built a cool product, and I'm bringing up Graylog because it's one of them I've done several videos on. The comments, man, people hate that. Tom, don't you know Graylog? Someone should fork it and put it back under GNU. And I'm like, okay, cool. Where's the developers going to come from? It's the same people that wanted to fork SureNAS Core. IX Systems is abandoning BSD. Let's fork it. I'm like, better idea. Contact Chris Moore and say, I'd love to donate all these magic developers you have in your back pockets you're going to fork it with. Just donate your time back. Chris Moore would be happy to talk to you.
People really don't understand that when a project is open source, the developers of that open project are like 3 people.
Yeah.
It's not like IX Systems or Graylog or Craft Computing has an army of developers behind us. I literally pay a developer part-time.
Yeah.
And he's on a contract basis at that. He's not even an employee. I love you, Chris, but maybe one day. But what I'm looking at doing is I'm going to open source the firmware, but we're going to open source it probably a GPL non-commercial license, where you can look at the firmware, you can modify the firmware for your own use, or you can feed back to the firmware and we can adopt changes that we see that would be beneficial for the community. And that's not a dick move. That's also, hey, by you buying products from us, that funds the development of this firmware further. Because Chris would not be working on this firmware unless he's making money from this. And like, open source is great. If there were 20 developers who all of a sudden wanted to say, yeah, I'll give 20 hours a week, I'll open source it, and you can do whatever the hell you want with it. But those people aren't there.
Right.
Right now, I'm paying a developer, and I will continue paying that developer very well into the future. And we will open source it, so you can use it. You can modify it for your own use. If you buy an Axe Effect product, you can modify the firmware and tweak settings and everything else, and that's totally cool. You can look under the hood. If you want to submit changes, we can look at adopting them, to benefit the greater good. But those changes are going to be very few and far between from community developers, because that's just the nature of open source. And so, yes, it's going to be open source. Yes, there's going to be limitations on what you can actually do with our firmware. I'm not going to give my firmware to APC and say, have at it, guys. Because I also need to make money if you want to see further development in this area. And trust me, I have really big plans for development in this area. And that funding's got to come from somewhere.
Yeah, and that's it's insane, because when you look at the amount of money that Amazon AWS makes, I mean, it's such a magnitude bigger. Their margins they make. You talk about Google or any of these companies building on these open source projects. You talk about the company that has profits in a quarter that we will not see collectively in our lifetimes. Like, it's insane. And they're like, oh, donate back. I would say, it's just, there has to be some better funding models to come up with. I've seen some really cool progress. This is why it's taken me a little bit of time to put the video, because I don't want to just be negative and say open source is going to die. I want to actually show that there are some places. There is a few places in the European Union. There was another announcement today about some more funds that are being pushed towards a lot of smaller developers, and it's pretty awesome. So it's not all doom and gloom,
right?
But it's worrisome. It is.
Yeah.
The reason why we don't have, when we talk about open source firewalls, I'm someone who was using open source firewalls starting in the 90s when I was told I was crazy. And I have a fun history of all that I'm working on as well. And it's just all the notes I have to it. I'm like, I can't believe how many firewall projects I've tried over the years, and all are dead. We've come down to, we've got pfSense left and OpenSense. There we go. There's our list of
firewalls and FreeNAS are the reason I got into Linux and open source in the first place. And I've been using FreeNAS since like their second major release in 2007 or something like that.
Yeah. And by the way, if you didn't know, pfSense and FreeNAS have the same fork of their base stuff, Monowall.
Mm-hmm.
So interesting history, because they said, hey, this old BSD in the early days was better than most in positioning to build an appliance. It was kind of like the best code to use. That's why it was used for things like the PlayStation. Is it still used for PlayStation? I don't know.
In some sense, PS5 is BSD based, but in the same kind of sense that like Mac OS is BSD based.
Yeah,
like
yes, I think it derived far from it.
Yes. Right.
Yeah, depending on how tightly you want to look at the code.
Right.
But they were both forked from Monowall, and Monowall was like a really popular project because BSD lend itself so well to being an appliance-based system. So that history kind of carries over to then the FreeNAS project, which, they ended up forking it. It was a big lift they did to start separating the middleware. So the goal was to say, hey, we have the base OS and we have a middleware module. That was the concept. Didn't work out so well. They ended up rewriting a ton of it. And once they got on Linux, they realized, well, BSD is having a harder and harder time for hardware support. And we just can't, because they're, most of the code IX system gives back is focused on ZFS. IX systems and Clara systems are probably your two biggest contributors to the code base of ZFS.
Yeah.
And so that's where their focus is. They also don't have a bucket of money and a bucket of developers because they're paying these developers to also contribute to the free BSD code base. So they've moved to Linux on there, and that's where people started hating them. And, hey, I get it. It sucks. I'm a longtime free BSD person myself, but
yeah.
I don't know how to fund it. I don't have the, an average kernel developer is making like $160K a year. I can't put them on my payroll and just have them develop kernels. That's not easy.
As soon as I make $160K a year and have an extra $160K a year to give to a developer, I will totally do that. But until said time, my firmware is going to be open source, but not for commercial.
Right. Yeah, it is a wild problem because it's not that the money's not there, and it's just it's like someone said. I can't remember who said this quote, but I always loved it. The future's here. It's just not evenly distributed. It's just,
Ooh, that's good.
I like that. I've always loved that quote.
That's
it's
good.
Been around for a while.
I haven't heard that one before.
Yeah, it completely makes sense. You go, yep, that's the future's here. It's just not evenly distributed.
Yep.
So.
We do have a
These
couple
are all
super
solvable
chats
problems.
Real quick. That Lion sends over $2 Canadian. We take those. How do you remote into your multi-game GPU servers? That is a great question, and I touch on it from time to time. I've done a couple different videos on it. There's two main ways that I do that. There's also a third way that I really haven't explored at all, and that's where Level 1 Tech's Wendell will come in. I use a commercial software called Parsec. It is a free software that you can download that does GPU accelerated video encoding of your desktop stream, and also has features like gamepad pass-through and some other things. Also with a dynamic DNS, and so they host a server, and so you have a client-server architecture that points to a single gateway, essentially. So wherever your client exists, they just go, oh yeah, cool, and you log in. And it's great. If you want to go a little bit more open source, there is a streaming piece of software called Sunshine that is basically an open source recreation of GeForce Game Stream that you can download. And even though it's an open source implementation of GeForce, it actually works with NVIDIA, Intel, or AMD GPUs. And so even if you have an integrated GPU, it will work. You can get a GPU accelerated H.264, X.265 stream of your desktop to a client. The client that you use is called Moonlight, and it is an open source implementation of GeForce streaming, but on the client side of things. And so there's two different developers for one for the server, one for the client. It's Sunshine and Moonlight. Moonlight has a lot of great features, and it has fantastic quality. The problem between those two architectures is you need direct client connection, and so you need to create the dynamic discovery or direct IP connection of the client. So it's not necessarily as user-friendly, and there's some networking know-how that you need to do, especially if you want to access something not on your network.
Overlay networks might be an easy one, like Tailscale.
Tailscale, zero tier, there's all kinds of things like that you can also do. But those are solutions on top of a different solution that you could just use Parsec and it's done.
Please don't open things to the raw internet.
Please don't open these services to the raw internet.
Yeah, that's a bad day.
Please don't do that. That's a very bad idea. There's also Looking Glass, which has been heavily influenced and actually developed by Wendell over at Level 1 Techs. And that is, you can do some streaming from that, but it's a lot more limited on what you can actually do. It's more meant to read the GPU encode stream off of a virtual machine or virtual host on a server. And so you can pull that stream down, but getting it to another machine is insanely difficult. It's possible, but it's difficult. But those are the three solutions that are out there.
Yeah, the Parsec one's pretty popular with we have a couple companies in the movie industry using it, and they love it.
I've used Parsec before. Rett, my co-host who lost internet tonight, he occasionally does some video editing from me from home. And rather than transferring 300 gigabytes worth of video files or even proxy footage, like 70 gigabytes worth of proxy footage to him, I have a server here with a GPU that he remotes into via Parsec, and he gets a full accelerated desktop with local access to all of my storage. And so that is a fantastic way to access things remotely. I love VDI solutions. God, I love VDI solutions, and Parsec does a great job.
Yeah, I VDI solutions. I mean, I I like that they exist because they solve the immediate problem until we can solve the bigger problem of just delivering things as a web application. Like that's
Yes.
ultimately like VDI is a band-aid because we're trying to solve a problem, but it's cool that that band-aid exists.
Right.
We need to heal. We need to solve this issue of how do we get this 300 gigs over to the other person.
Well, here's the fun.
don't.
Here's the fun part of that conversation is I pulled some strings this week with my internet service provider. So I'm just going to lay bare exactly what happened rather than like sugarcoating any of this. I am the 1% when it comes to internet service providers and my internet service provider is Comcast. And when I call Comcast and I say, please, sir, can I have some more? They say, piss off.
Yeah. They're not the great company.
They're not a great company.
No.
They're the company that's they're the only company that's in my area that offers more than 40 megabit down, let alone up. So that's where I live. And I chose to live here and I love where I live, but there's no fiber here. And I've just kind of lived with that. Now, Comcast is in an interesting situation because DOCSIS 3 and DOCSIS 3.1 have implementations of allowing multiple streams of upload traffic to increase your upload speed. However, Comcast has been very slow to actually make this migration and change because they say, well, what about all of our traditional cable customers who are still using that bandwidth? We would have to free that up, and, you know, that's just a whole headache on our end. And what does an average customer need with more than 30 megabit up anyway? And I went, I need a lot more than 30 megabit up. Please, please. And I get the piss off. And so once a month, I will log into Xfinity and go, is there more service in my area now? And the answer is no. Because there's no competition in my area. There's no one to compete with. There's not a Fios. There's not an AT&T. There's not a Google Fiber. There's not a Ziply. There's no one. It's Comcast, and that's literally it, except for CenturyLink DSL. So they don't have to compete, and so they don't. Well, Comcast, on the back end of things, is slowly increasing or upgrading their equipment, as it were. And I happened to meet someone who may or may not work for Comcast at an event I recently attended and let him know of my plight. And he goes, well, let me look into if your local node has been upgraded to allow for those additional channels. So for those who don't know how DOCSIS work, there are a certain number of channels that allow for download, and there are a certain amount of channels that allow for upload. There are different frequencies on your cable line that do different tasks. And it's typically 32 down and 2 up. But you can do 8 up if your cable company allows it, and that is part of the DOCSIS spec. Well, he looked it up, and my exact address does have an upgraded node in which they are allowing 8 channels of upload.
Nice.
However, they're not selling that package in my area. So I couldn't get it if I wanted it. Unless someone simply activates a modem with those particular credentials on my account and then pushes that account package to my subscription service, and then I just pay for that service. I'm not getting a discount. This is not sponsored. But I now have 2 gig by 300. And I could not be happier.
That is amazing. And trust me, definitely not sponsored. There is no like Comcast is like the only reason you choose Comcast is because there's not another choice.
I can't say the things that I want to say
on.
on Comcast because I would be instantly demonetized. I hate Comcast with every fiber of my body. However, Comcast is now giving me 2 gig by 300 service for the same price that I was paying on Sunday.
I love the South Park episode about Comcast.
Oh, darn it!
Yeah. What are you going to do, find another provider?
Oh, there's not another provider in your area, is there? Oh, darn it!
Oh, now I want to rewatch that episode because just...
I watched it literally a month ago. It holds up.
Yeah, I'd say there's nothing has changed.
How much would it bum you out?
Oh man. Broadcomcast. There we go. That's the mashup no one wants.
Jason sends over $5, says, let's bring BBSs back. Actually, fun story. I have actually considered hosting a BBS service in which I host all of the old BBS games, like Red Dragon and things like that, as a Patreon perk.
That would be fun.
Where if you want to play some old school RPG games, old school dial-up RPGs, I'm looking at hosting those.
Yeah, I've been a little, and I think probably you too, burned out a little bit on the big social media platforms, just being too much doom scrolling. And I ran into one of my longtime hacker friends, and we were talking about he's doubled down on IRC. He's never left it.
Is it X?
Well,
is it X or is it someone else?
No, it's not something you know, but we were talking about it. So I'm going to probably join his IRC servers.
I have a couple hacker friends, and I know we have mutual hacker friends. So I was just trying to narrow it down, but that's okay.
The way I can describe it is there were about potentially 5 years, but if you're good behavior, he only had 2 years where he wasn't on IRC. That kind of hacker friend. He only had a 2-year break out of his career that he wasn't on IRC. Turns out there was a time in his life when it was inaccessible. Not because it wasn't there, but because he was somewhere else.
He suddenly pings everyone and goes, "Hey, I'm not dead."
Yeah. I won't say his name here.
That's
but
fine.
I wonder if I can have him on my channel. Because he is definitely public now, because when he does talk at hacker conferences, oh my God, is it funny? Because he always has a slide. He goes, "For those wondering, I'm that guy." It'll be his mugshot. He goes,
I know who you're talking about it. I know who you're talking about.
Yeah, no, I won't talk about it here, but you can meet me at the bar later.
Yes.
And so
if you want to know why, here are my bar hours.
Yes.
You pay my tab, I'll tell the full story.
Yeah. Oh yeah. He is a wonderful human, and he works in my space, so I get to see. I love seeing him at events because I walk up to him, and it was such good timing because I walk up right, and his boss was there. His boss hands him a roll of $100 bills, and I look at him, and I look at his boss, and his boss walks away, and I said, "I see nothing." He starts laughing, and I actually know it's pretty innocent. One of the things you do when you go to these big tech events is you're always giving away cash and things like that. People don't realize how much these tech events are. So handing out $100 bills for jokes and getting people over to your booth, completely not a big deal.
Yeah.
Matter of fact, at the last conference I was at, ThreatLocker gave away the brand new Hummer, which I think is $130,000
ish. Right about that. Yeah.
About there. That's what they gave away as a prize. That was one of the big prizes. And people like, that's expensive. And my wife works at a vendor space as well. Her booth was $50,000. So it was like, you got to pay that much for the booth. CMAs will buy a car and throw it in there too.
Right. Yeah. As long as you're doing the marketing, you might as well make the marketing pay off. And if it costs an extra $100,000, so be it. Like, that's the cost of marketing. Yeah. And that's what a lot of people don't understand.
But I see people saying, "I love IRC, BBSs. I'm here for it." I don't like doom scrolling on social media, and I just want to be in there to post with my friends. But it seems like any of the social platforms I go on, there's too much BS and garbage that is not only a distraction to me, it's a detraction to be there, because I don't. And I'm like, "Hey, look, fancy new tech," and someone will then figure out a way that it must tie into their political view of the world. And I'm like, no, I'm not here for that. But the good news is, when I have wandered my way back into places like IRC, you're like, oh, look, those people don't seem to wander over here, or at least the bots haven't figured out how.
So I don't know if you read my show notes at all, but we actually do have a story about Bluesky. Are you on Bluesky?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. I need to follow you then. So
I haven't posted. I signed up like everybody else, and then I did nothing.
Well, you signed up like everyone else, but There have been millions upon millions of Twitter refugees flocking to Bluesky, and I will say I am absolutely one of them. I left Twitter about a year ago. I couldn't stand the doom scrolling anymore, and so I just stopped. And I uninstalled the app from my phone. I didn't do it anymore. I occasionally, and by occasionally I mean maybe once every 3 to 4 weeks, check for DMs, because the main reason I had Twitter, on top of scrolling for news, was keeping in touch with people I don't get to talk to in real life. It was talking to people like Tom. Like, Tom and I met over Twitter, I believe. And there's a number of other YouTubers that I kept in contact with, and a number of other vendors that I kept in contact with over Twitter. And that was our DM stream. And suddenly it's like, I don't want to be here anymore. And so I didn't. And that was actually a bit of a detriment, because I like the people that are there, at least the people that I choose to associate with. The problem is all the Nazis. And well, Bluesky has been seeing an absolute surge in activity. Earlier this week, they saw 15 million active users. And since last Tuesday, I don't know what happened then, but they have seen 1 million new users since last Tuesday.
Nice.
I'm not going to read the title because reasons. But yeah, lots of new users on Bluesky because of reasons. And I have been having a great time over there, because I hate
really put some.
I hate
effort
to use
into-
the phrase, it feels like Twitter of old, but suddenly I can connect with the people that I wanted to connect with in the first place.
I spent some time on Mastodon and started building a following there, but then it kind of fell apart.
I tried.
Yeah.
I tried on Mastodon. I really did.
I just never. I feel that there's certain niches that have gone well there, and I'm
Yes.
happy for the people that have found their tribe and found their community there. That's amazing. I'm so happy for you. I just didn't, and I never really got any engagement, and it just kind of got to the point where, even though my followers kept going up, there was never engagement. There's never even a like on the stuff I post. One like, one
Right.
or two like, but there's no comments, no. So it didn't encourage me to keep posting there.
Yeah, I like the Fediverse. I like the idea behind it. I like the idea of, federated social media. If I can be honest, if I can speak very honestly for 10 seconds without any judgment, the furries got to Mastodon first.
Yes.
I don't want any judgment from that phrase. I just want you to absorb it for what it is. Okay.
Yeah. Hey, look, I don't yuck on anyone's yiff. I'm not into it, but you can do what you want.
That's exactly right. And the problem is, all of my recommended feed was nothing but things that I don't want to see. And I have no problem with people having a community, but that's not my community. I know I'm adjacent to that community because, you work in tech. I work in tech. I work in cybersecurity. If all of us get on a plane to Houston, the internet's going to hear about it. The problem is I'm one of 72 that died in a plane crash, and 68 of them were furries.
Yes.
Like, I understand the implications, but I don't knock on anything. But at the same time, that's not the social media crowd I hang out with.
Right.
End of discussion.
Yeah. Well, in a similar vein, like when I first started my own Discord, I had to say, look, I don't have any problems with anime, but there's other places for it. And people thought that every day they should post anime stuff in there. And I'm like, look, I'm not that big of an anime fan. Great that you like it. This is about TrueNAS and firewalls. I don't have a relationship with anime that needs to be here, so feel free to do this anywhere but here.
You and I had a conversation a couple years ago, because there was a particular user on my channel who my mods and I had conversations about for about a year. Because it was like flirting with the rules and then pulling back, and then flirting with the rules and then pulling back. But then we also found out they were sending DMs to all of my members of questionable morality / legality, and I went, no, enough. and I went, I'm banning this person. And I went, I banned this person and I feel kind of bad. And you went, what person? And I went, and I said their username and we went, oh, that person.
Yeah. It's
I have banned 6 people on my Discord for the 6.5 year duration of my Discord, and 5 of them have been for the same goddamn thing.
Yeah. It's just people are fun like that.
Yes.
One of the other things, for those that don't know, we do have a private Discord group that just a bunch of us creators belong to, so we can talk about the creative process and everything else. But one of the things that we've realized pretty quickly is there's millions of comments as collectively all of us get, and this includes not just Jeff here from Graphic Computing, but Jeff Kierling and other people that are in there. We realize it's usually just like that one person who leaves the same comments or unhinged comments.
Maybe
on all
he
of our
has a
channels.
soccer ball for a main picture. User profile.
Yeah, it's just kind of funny. That correlation data was so enlightening to all of us. She's like, "What is this unhinged person obsessed? Oh, they're not obsessed with me."
Right. What is this one unhinged person talking about? And then you start sharing this comment. And by the way, we have a channel where we do nothing but share unjudging comments.
Yeah, we don't judge. We're just like,
we don't judge. It's like, where is this person coming from? And that soccer ball shows up an awful lot.
Yes, it does. Yes, it does.
Gearling chiming in. We all know that person. Yeah,
pretty much.
There were a couple people in our Discord, which, by the way, there's like 40 or 50 of us now. Like, there's a lot.
There's a lot. This started as an idea me and Jay had from Learn Linux TV.
Right.
And then we reached out to you. You were among the first, and we said, what do we call it? And you're like, you give it a Star Trek style name, and we're like, perfect. That's what it's been named ever since.
So you and Jay, Learn Linux TV, you guys would meet once every couple of weeks and just chat about like the state of YouTube and the state of your channels and businesses and everything else. And then you eventually invited me, and I went, this is really cool. What if we got other people involved in this? And I'm like, you know what? I do a decent Discord. Let's spin up a Discord and let's just invite anyone who's in our same collective. That is open source, server, home lab, and ish, adjacent, whatever else, to just chat about the issues that face us all. And we found that they're very similar issues that face us all. We all hit similar challenges. We all see a very similar demographic. And it became a Discord of like 50 people at this point. Yeah. Which is phenomenal. And let me tell you, it's a who's who of who you want to know in this space.
Yeah. It's just kind of cool. And all we're doing is it's not like the most chatty place, but it's a place where we just discuss the things we're doing in tech and tips a lot. Actually, because I see Jeff in here, huge shout out to Jeff because he documents a lot of his stuff on GitHub. And we talk about like how we do the recording process, because most of us, we nerd out to an extent about the recording process and how we do it in cameras. And, Jeff certainly is more of a camera nerd than me. But when you want to talk about a device, like, hey, I'm holding this Unify thing, this is my passion, is the network engineering side. I had to learn a lot of the other side so I could bring it to the audience. So having a bunch of cohort of people that help you out with that is kind of fun.
Yeah. So... and we discuss HomeLab Con, which may eventually be a thing, maybe around the Detroit area.
Yeah, we got to figure that out. Yeah, Tom's got to do that. We got to figure out how to get sponsors to pay for it and how to make something actually happen. Yeah, we want a HomeLab conference. Yes. That's absolutely. I think it's got to happen. I think the HomeLab's getting bigger and bigger, and maybe it's an untapped market. Maybe it's so big. What I know is because my friends at MSP GeekCon are extremely transparent. Because MSP Geek is a nonprofit. Yeah. My business partner is actually the head board member for that. I know exactly how much it costs to put on a conference, all that goes into it. They spend over $500,000 putting that conference on every year. But the good news is it doesn't cost the people that go to that $500,000. They find vendors and throw money at it. So we got to figure out how to coordinate and make that all happen. So, and I'd love someone to be here in Detroit because I travel a lot to go to conferences because they're never in Detroit. They're not ever in Detroit. This is not a place where conferences happen.
Yeah.
So nothing, at least, no tech conferences happen here in Detroit.
Right.
So non-technical things happen all the time. So
yeah, as I like to tell a lot of my people, I'm an ideas guy. And so I told Tom, hey, I have this idea. Make it happen.
Yeah.
That's how I operate.
Sometimes Tom's an ideas guy too, and I didn't know who to hand it to though.
Right.
We need a doer.
Tom literally went, well, I'm married.
I got that done. Yeah. I messaged my wife. I'm like, you should do something, but she's not going to organize an entire conference for us, I don't think.
Right. We're working on it. We're working on some kind of home lab con. As it turns out, a lot of them are Detroit adjacent. Like we have you and Jay, obviously, but we've also got Tim and Veronica, very, very close proximity. You know, Jeff Geerling, an hour flight, Wendell, an hour flight, Epos Vox, an hour flight. Like Detroit seems like a great meetup area, and man, if we could schedule that around the time of the NFC Championship game in which Detroit will be hosting this year, I would be all the more happier.
Yeah, the DTW, the airport it's an international airport, so it's easy for people to get to. There's always direct flights from like all the major cities, which is also nice because when I go to conferences, so with the exception of flying to Canada, I generally never have to do connecting flights.
Right.
Our 45 drive trip, on the other hand. Well,
don't start with me.
Yeah. That is always some level. I'm just driving next year.
Yeah. Well, no, because they bought a plane, so we'll be going to Baltimore next year and then flying north.
Flying out of Baltimore. I'm fine with that answer too.
Yeah. Yeah. I have been to 45 drives twice, and 3 out of my 4 legs have been delayed by an average of 17 hours.
Yeah.
Average, mind you. The longest was 36. The median was 24.
I will absolutely give people a tour of 8 Mile.
Yeah, oh, totally. I think that's required if we fly in.
That's required.
Yeah.
Fun story with that movie, which by the way, I rewatched it and I was shocked at how well that holds up. The movie 8 Mile.
Yeah.
Because that came out circa 2000-ish or so.
Yeah.
And I worked here in Detroit at I was the IT for a transportation company. One of our offices was in Kentucky. Mm-hmm. And I remember the calls like right after people went to the theaters to see it, because back then there were theaters. Mm-hmm. Long before streaming. And I just remember though, I'm on a call with one of the people in Kentucky and she's like, Tom, I really need to know. I was like, she said, I really know about 8 Mile. Like, what do you want to know about 8 Mile? She goes, is that real? And I'm just like, yeah. And she's like, does it look like that? I'm like, yeah. I mean, it looks a lot different now, but definitely back then. Now there's still a section because oddly I was there today because I was on my way to Micro Center and picked up a Raspberry Pi.
There you go. As one does. Yeah.
As one does. And the shortest route from where I was to where I wanted to be was taking the scenic route down 8 Mile. And my son he's 18, so we're looking around and he's just like, it's an interesting area. I was like, yeah, it was worse. And he goes, it doesn't look good now. I'm like, yeah, it's this area.
Oh boy, you're what, 20 now? Interesting.
Yeah. The area that's still even worse is the Joy Road. And my friend Eric, I love because he grew up in that area. I love. He gave a talk a while ago. He's relatively famous. If you look up an article called "Why I Hate Detroit," you'll learn who my friend Eric is.
Yeah,
and he's local here. He's kind of a celebrity. But one of his talks he gave, TEDx talk, he's like, points to where he grew up on Joy Road. He goes, Joy Road, home of the Joy Boys, despite their moniker, not joyful, not joyful people at all. It was just like, they were a pretty notorious gang. And Detroit has a well-earned reputation for the shenanigans that went on here for a long time. But there's a lot of good in Detroit now. It's quite the city on the rebuild. If anyone's had to suffer through those Rocket Mortgage commercials.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's based in here in Detroit. Rocket Mortgage employs 36,000 people in Detroit, and they, on average, make well over $100,000 a year. It's one of the reasons that the city got revamped was Rocket Mortgage became really big. That's where a lot of the money comes from, and so there's lots of fancy restaurants and cool places to go. And if you're into that,
when you could buy a house for $50,000 and people could finance that, it's like, yeah, apparently that's going to do well in a city that can afford $50,000 houses.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cost of living here is still reasonable, depending on where you're at. So it's an interesting place nonetheless. But yeah,
I'm not gonna lie. So in 2019 we decided to sell our house, and we opened up not only the entire US but kind of the entire globe of like, where do we want to live? I don't know. We ended up moving 30 miles away. As one does. But like I'm from Oregon. I was born in Eugene. I've lived 18 years in the Portland metro area, and then I'm like, do I move to the Salem metro area? Do I move to like Reno, Winnemucca? Do I move to Detroit? Do I move to Tennessee? Do I move to like rural New York, rural Pennsylvania? Like, where's the good deal to be had? And the entire map was open. Like we looked at, we teleconferenced with realtors from across the country looking for property. Because we wanted some specific things. And as it turns out, like the right house opened itself up in our back door for the right price. And it's like, all right, like that's just an instant winner. But we did look at Detroit. We did look at Nashville. We did look at, outskirts of Pittsburgh and Philadelphia. And a whole bunch of different places. We actually had property in mind for these places, and we started like drawing up plans for what property would look like there. I've
always lived here in this area, so it's easier. It's hard to move like when you don't have the connections. So I've always had connections here. Yeah. So it's hard to move. It was hard for me to move, especially now. There's 5 kids and 5 grandkids. So because my youngest is 18, so I've earned these gray hairs, and so they all live 3. They all live right here. All of them live within half an hour of here. So nice. 3 of them live really close. So we're not likely we're moving anywhere.
Right. Yeah,
I'm not in Detroit proper either. I'm also. The city proper is about a 25-minute drive for me. So
okay, yeah.
I'm in the country area essentially. Well, on the edge of I'm in suburbia, and then I'm on the edge where the country area starts here.
Totally. Farms yeah. No, I'm very similar. So we were on the absolute outer edge of Portlandia. In our last house, we lived there almost 10 years. We lived there from 2010 to 2019. And then we sold that house and we bought a house on the absolute edge, bleeding edge of Salem, the state capital. We are less than a quarter mile from the city limits, from 60 miles of nothing. And so, yeah, we're right there with you. But yeah, at Rett Systems.
Yeah. Yeah. Rett had a power outage, so I'm borrowing his banner.
I tried to change the banner. The problem is I hadn't updated Tom's banner because it's been a while since he's been on, and so it didn't have the transparencies. And so you have to live with Rett's. So there you go.
I'll live. I realize I'm just watching as I realize some people do it, but I do like the Rett Systems. There we go.
Rett Systems is a pretty good name. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah, I go with that.
Yeah.
Oh no, my drink is empty.
Uh-oh. You know what? I actually opened a beer and completely finished it without even talking about it. Which is weird for me.
You said the name because it's the there. Oh, you opened another one.
No, I opened a second beer and drank the entire second beer. Like, I opened it on camera and I poured it and then I just drank it because it was so freaking good. This is Hinterland Brewing out of... Where are they out of? Where's the brewery at? Come on. You're in here somewhere. No, you're covered by the label again.
I don't have another drink within range.
Please go get a drink.
I will be right back. So I'm gonna go get a drink. There's I gotta run upstairs. So I'll be back in a minute.
Absolutely. So this is the Hinterland Brewing Grand Cru, and the can art is absolutely fantastic on this. This is a bourbon barrel aged strong ale. It is 10.3%. I loved everything about this. It was super malty. It was super rich. It was a little bit of caramel, a little bit of, gosh, what do you even call that? It wasn't fruit, but it was fruit adjacent. Would you call that fig? But I don't want to call it fig because fig is also a distinct flavor. It was very rich, very dark, very rich, deep fruited cherry fig flavor. This was utterly delicious. I tried a couple of times to transition back into beer talk because I was enjoying this so much, but I was also enjoying the tech talk so much I didn't want to interrupt it too much, so I just kind of let it ride. But yeah, no, this was freaking fantastic. Grand Cru from Hinterland Brewing, bourbon barrel aged strong ale, 10.3%. God, this was good. Oh man, this was good. And now that Tom's going to get more whiskey, I kind of want to dive into my whiskey shelf. So I might do that as soon as he gets back, because I feel weird like walking away when there's not someone here. Like, there should be someone on camera, right? Yeah, you don't get that feeling in your fingertips back. Berry? No, not quite berry. Michael's drinking a full patch pumpkin, 9%.
And the back.
All right, what do you got?
So we have Jefferson's Ocean.
Oh, there you go.
Have you heard of this one?
I have.
It's an interesting because they brew it, age it.
Distill it. Yes.
Yeah. You were saying beer, so brew is in my head.
I know.
Fill it on a ship. This is their double barrel rye whiskey.
Nice.
And there's a story of how this came to be in my hands.
Ooh.
So, I'll be honest, anyone, if you see this bottle, and I think this goes for in the just under $100 range, don't buy it. But if you happen to be at a hacking conference in Deadwood, South Dakota.
I'm sorry, I'm going to cut you off. That is such a whiskey enthusiast thing to say. It's $100. Don't get it, but it's amazing. Because
it's not that amazing.
I have actually found that the cutoff point for like phenomenal whiskey is $100.
It is.
I will spend $100, no questions asked, on a lot of different bottles. I will also never spend $220 again in my life, regardless of what whiskey it is. I will also spend $40 over $220 7 out of 8 days of the week.
Yep. And if it says Angel's Envy, just buy it. So.
If it says Angel's Envy, it's an instant purchase. Yeah. Like Jameson Gold is $100. And it's the best Irish whiskey you will ever have. I don't care if you drink an 18-year single barrel, whatever else, that's been aged 28 years. Jameson Gold is a better Irish whiskey at $100. Period. End of discussion.
Yes. So this bottle came into my possession because First, I'm in Deadwood, South Dakota for Wild West Hacking Fest.
Ooh, there
Now
you
look
go.
it up.
Yeah.
It's interesting. It is a hacking fest that occurs far away from anywhere or anything or even internet.
Oh.
There's probably, I don't know, 100 meg pipe that services all of the cellular service there. And when the hacking fest is going on with roughly 1,800 people, there is no such thing as internet. But nonetheless, that makes it a much more personal event because we're all about hacking stuff. We're all having a great time there. And Deadwood is a legalized, every place has a casino in it type place. So gambling is just part of the thing there. Deadwood's not really much of a town. We make up 3/4 of the population at 2,000 people when we show up. There's just no one lives
You're
there.
the Sturgis of hacking.
Yeah, we're the Sturgis of hacking because Sturgis does kind of bleed into there for those that don't know.
You got the
or
South
look up
Dakota
that.
vibe. I get it.
Yep. We're going. So after an evening of hacking shenanigans and the party's over, my wife's going down the road and there's a bingo thing going on. She's like, it says you can win prizes. So she wanders in with the group of people that she was with, and I wasn't with her at the time as I was still doing hacking things. And she first wins a bottle of whiskey bingo. Next, she wins a really fancy flask, which she knows I'm not that much into flasks. So she gave it to someone else who said my husband would love it. So my wife just handed it to the person. Then she won a new Xbox. So all this transpires. So my she's like, hey, meet me down at this bar. So I wander down there. I come there, and there's an Xbox, some whiskey, and there's a flask on top of it. And she's like, the flask isn't yours, but the other two are. I'm like, cool. And so that is how we acquired these things.
Nice.
Complete random. Now, I don't think this isn't bad. I just don't think it tastes like I can buy the Elijah that I was drinking earlier in the same price range for the big bottle of Elijah rye. And I think it's a little better than this. So it's not a bad taste. Maybe I'm just not liking
the Elijah 1.2, 1.3 liter, whatever it is. It's about $70. And good God, is that an amazing bottle?
Yeah. Yeah, it's great. I keep buying it. I'm just like, I'm thrilled with it. I have now refilled the Elijah several times. When this is empty, this will just be a shelf ornament.
Yeah. One sec.
All right. Oh, what else? The what else do I see in here? See, the most I've ever spent on booze was for $60 for chocolate peanut butter rum. I've tried a few of the chocolate peanut butter ones. Oh, all right, you got it. That's the one. That's the one right there.
So I literally just texted my wife and said, "Can you bring me down a whiskey glass? I would really appreciate it." And and as soon as I texted, I hear thump 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 upstairs, and I went, "Yes,
it's coming.
It's the whiskey
Delivery
glass
on
is
its way."
So this is the Angel's Envy finished rye. Rye whiskey finished in Caribbean rum casks. It is a 100 proof rye. So it's a bit spicy, it's a bit bold, it's a bit boozy, and I love everything about it.
Yeah, we usually buy numerous bottles of that when we do. So when I do public speaking events at conferences, especially more specifically, I should say, when me and my business partner do our public speaking events.
Yes.
We will buy 4 to 6 bottles of that and line them up on the front of the stage because there's rules at these conference centers because they do serve alcohol at them.
Right.
We are not allowed to serve you alcohol. So what we do is there will be
But if I place a bottle down and then I slowly turn around.
Yes. Well, we always do. There happens to be whiskey here, and there's always a pause. That means all of you. And no, I won't pour it for you. There's some rule against it. Mm-hmm. But if it does happen to get poured into this giant stack of plastic cups, and then everyone shows up and starts wandering up in a line, and that's how we kick it off. And someone asked us once why we do that. I'm like, well, we're not better if we take the whiskey. We may drink some of it, but we seem better to you once you drink it. So, and we just got our feedback. We consistently are one of the top rated because they rate all the talks because there's lots of different speakers. There's lots of talk tracks. We consistently get the top ratings for our talks. It's just been we joke about it every year. We just had a group chat going because the ratings just came in for last week's talks, and we were like 4.9 out of 5 stars on there.
Nice.
And we have all the reviews and the feedback that they sent us about it. They don't have a category for the whiskey was good, but everyone kind of jokes. You guys just bribe everyone.
Right.
And if anyone tries to copy us, they're like, "Well, you're just copying what Tom and Jason do."
That's exactly right. Yeah.
It's like it's our thing.
We do have a couple more super chats.
Awesome.
Non sends over a super chat, $5, and actually also sent over a $1.99 super chat, which I forgot to get to, which they reminded me about. Your hardware seems super easy to clone, and when your firmware is going to be open sourced, how do you plan to combat Chinese clones? By being first to market and having better availability and better marketing and better sales rates.
And I think your brand, because it comes down to sales. People buy from people they like, and I'm very much this way, and I think the majority of people are. When you're looking at a product, I always will try to buy it from a brand I know, even though I know I could probably get a similar featured thing there. Once you know a brand or you know the person behind the brand, you end up building a trust relationship with them. So, I mean, someone could say, I can sell you the same thing Jeff does for half the price, and I'd probably shrug my shoulders and go, I'd rather buy it from Jeff. I mean, I think there's enough of that, and there's enough goodwill, as long as you're a good person that your brand creates, that I don't think it's going to be as much of a challenge. It's a concern to some extent, but
it's totally a concern, and that market will exist. If that market grows to the point to where it impacts my business, maybe there's action that I can take, but I'm going to be first to market. Period.
Yeah.
There's no ifs, ands, or buts about, am I going to be first? Am I going to be trailing someone? No, I am. The way I am positioning my sensor market is to be first to market in like 7 different segments. We are going to be first to market for an affordable temperature sensor. We're also looking at developing that platform into multiple other sensors that businesses, MSPs, data centers will want to implement. And so we will have the first Google search result and a 100% unique identifier as a product name, which I've recently registered, that is white space on the internet. And it's really a cool thing that I've managed to latch onto, that the space exists, but also it kind of doesn't exist. And that's what I'm trying to capitalize on.
Yeah, and there's a trust factor for when you start saying security, data center, monitoring. I was actually kind of shocked at the amount of hate that people had towards a firewall that didn't have, or not a firewall, but a switch I talked about that didn't even have an IP address on it.
Yeah.
But I mean, if it did have an IP, would I use it for anything critical in infrastructure? Answer is no. To buy a generic no-name thing, we worry a lot about whether or not there's some type of backdoor or implant on there. And that's not a concern you're going to get when you buy it from Jeff versus you're not going to know when you buy it from the lowest bidder on AliExpress. It's just kind of, it's becoming a bigger and bigger concern. And I think that there's enough awareness on it, even if some people push it maybe a little bit too far, that did show me that there's a lot of people concerned with it. And I mean, there's a concern, but if, as I noted, like people that hated the fact that I reviewed a switch, even though it's unmanaged, there's no IP address, are like, it could have a backdoor that takes over your whole network. I'm like, there's not that much sophistication in this $49 switch.
But it does.
Sorry.
I don't know if you remember the Supermicro story from Bloomberg years ago.
That they still haven't retracted.
So years ago, there was a story from Bloomberg that said there is a supply chain infiltration on Supermicro servers in which the Chinese government has implanted a device the size of a grain of rice that has its own processor, its own RAM, its own storage, its own networking, and is exfiltrating US data by the petabyte back to Chinese servers. And as it turns out, nuh-uh isn't a defense. Even though if you understand the logistics of the implication of what that would mean, a network device has to have a MAC address. It has to have an IP address. It has to have an exit point. It has to have access to certain data. It has to be able to break encryption. It has to be able to read data in flight. It has to be able to exfiltrate data in flight over a physical network that is otherwise monitored. Like, if you go down the list of this isn't going to happen on an enterprise network, the reasons were 9,999 to 1, but you can't disprove the 1. This never happened. There was never a possibility of this happening. Every single Supermicro motherboard from that point until today has been electron microscope scanned and back parties vetted to verify there's no such thing, but you can't prove a negative of something not existing. However, if you buy an off-brand product that happens to run my firmware, there's a possibility, because my firmware is open source, so you can put whatever you want into it, and my hardware is not that hard to re-engineer. The hardware is going to be closed source, but we're also using off-the-shelf components. I'm fully on board with that. I'm fully transparent about that. If you want to know what sensor we're using a Bosch BME 280. That's our primary sensor. Go build yourself one.
Yeah.
The money's in the firmware, the money's in the marketing, the money's in putting X with Y with Z.
Yep. It's all in the execution.
Right. So yeah. Am I worried about occasional thing? Yes, of course I'm worried about Chinese clones being manufactured. It's going to happen, especially if my product becomes popular. But at the same time, if I'm first to market and I have a brand name and I have an official retail source and everything else, 85 to 90% of the money is still going to go my way, and it's going to cost me well more than 10% of my market share to chase that other 10% down and beat them with a stick. So I'm not going to worry about it. I'm being real.
Yeah, it's not that much of a threat. Too much aluminum foil in the world, maybe.
I don't think there's enough aluminum foil in the world. I think not enough of you are wearing tinfoil hats.
Yeah.
But that's a conversation for another day, not following the week of an election.
There's a lot of them. I know the people that should be, and they all have their ports exposed.
They all have SSH coming in, don't they?
Because I'm not on my channel, I'll vaguely refer to what I was working on today, which was a company that is ITAR compliant that also has publicly exposed ports that we're fixing. Now, we're taking over IT for them because their other IT company did this, their other MSP. But picture a company working in the aerospace industry that has to follow ITAR rules, CMMC rules.
Yeah.
On our discovery. By the way, their MSP did not notice our very noisy tools, which are not made to be stealthy, doing the discovery. They didn't know we scanned their network, did the evaluation, brought it back to them, and gave them, like, here's all the things on your network. These are all the things that shouldn't be on your network. Did you know all this was publicly exposed? Really? It's kind of what their answer was. And I'm like, good news is we didn't find any security problems with it, but we have some radiation questions. But yes. There's so much work to do right now.
Yeah. Yeah. It's amazing. I used to work very closely with a number of companies, probably about that size, probably about that scope. Government, contracted, DoD, all kinds of relationships there. And you would come in and they're like, well, we paid the owner's son-in-law to do the network because he knows computers. And I'm like, okay, cool. Here's all the things that he got wrong, and here's all the things that you are financially liable for if they're ever discovered on the public internet. Still want to go with the owner's son, or would you rather hire someone who actually graduated with this knowledge? Changed a lot of minds,
Yeah.
I hope you would do something about your product's visibility on Google and Amazon. I always hate digging through clones looking for the real one. I have a new name already registered, a new website already registered, a new product name already registered. And once we go live with this product, it will be the only product that has ever existed with this name in ever time going back a million years. So yes.
I think, yeah, that's going to help a lot. The other thing that's one of the things I'm working on building, and I'll be building it out in 2025, is curation, because I think that's going to be the value that the creators, like me, Jeff, Wendell, Jeff Geerling, curation is going to become critical, because SEO stuffing and all that's just like, it's destroyed Google search. 404 Media, type in 404 Media, which, by the way, pay them. They're a great media team that covers a lot of good things. I was right away, and Joseph Cox, one of the writers, his book, Dark Wire, highly recommend reading that book. It's so good. But back to the topic here. 404 Media has done a great job of covering Google's downfall, essentially, as search has become more and more broken. And AI isn't necessarily unbiased or bubbling the best up to the top either. It just sometimes randomly hallucinates you a wrong answer. So I think people are going to go, hey, Jeff and Tom and all these other people that are kind of in our circle, Wendell and them that I mentioned, Jeff Geerling, you're going to go, I just don't feel like looking for the garbage YouTube videos or the garbage products out there with Google. Yeah. I'm just going to go click the link that they provided me to curate the information or show me this is the product you buy. I was spending a lot of time today revamping product listings I have, because some of the product listings died. So we actually took the time to go through links, because I use a lot of short URLs, and update them, because people were asking me, hey, Tom, what cables were you using for your lab? And they don't want to search and find the wrong one on Amazon. So they asked me the question. So I realized that was a broken link. And we realized there was a bunch of broken links. So we updated and revised. It took like 2 or 3 hours today. But I think that's where there's going to be a lot of value, is providing this whole, we can give you the links. We'll tell you this is the exact product, or you're buying the product from us. Here's the link, and we'll ship it to you. In the case of like Jeff's doing right here,
yes,
he's going to have a product name. You're going to buy it from Jeff. You don't have to worry about searching for things or SEO. You're like, I buy Jeff's product at the name Jeff gave it, and end of story. Wendell's done very good with his stores. His KVMs are absolutely amazing, and if you want a high quality KVM, Wendell's got one, and you go there, grab one.
We are very much following the Wendell model when it comes to devices. However, we're also the cheapest in the market right now, which is kind of weird. However, my market strategy is to pinch or attack the existing market. I'm going to come in below. I'm also going to come in above when I come out with my enterprise product. But the enterprise product is going to blow some freaking minds wide open when that launches. So we have some really fun things with that, like power management and things like that will integrate into a single sensor box that you can manage an entire rack from. So,
I see people saying no one's mentioning Bing. You know what Bing stands for, don't you? But it's not Google.
Yeah. Yes.
I've been saying that for years.
I haven't heard that one before. That's good.
Yeah, but it's not Google. Like that's why no one uses it. As much as Microsoft would like us to use it, and much as they will keep switching to it, at some point they'll give up on it. I don't know what that point is. I think AI is their new baby. Bing exists, but yeah, their current baby is, can we sell you a Copilot? Can we turn it on your computer?
Yeah. Windows refresh. How about we don't? Can we not and say we did? Cool.
Yeah.
Spencer sends over 10 Aussie bucks. Thank you very much. Behind and catching up on 2X, what are your thoughts on FUTO organizations, FUTO, and Source First? Personally, I feel the licensing compromises they make are reasonable and still in the spirit of open source.
Yeah, are you familiar with them?
Yeah.
It's interesting. Interesting organization. I like that they're doing in the spirit of open source. Mm-hmm. I get it's hard to be the purist in this day and age. It's just very, very tricky. So the fact that they're doing some things open source, awesome. good for them. They're a good organization. Seem to be bringing that. They've got a few initiatives that I think are really interesting that seem to be very good and community driven, especially their ones around like how do you follow your creators and stuff like that. I'm not detailed into that as well. I know. Does he? I don't follow him very much, but Rossman I know has been a big advocate for them. I don't keep up with them, so I don't know where his head's at today.
Yeah. Rossman is a huge advocate for open source everything, especially when it comes to specifically the hardware side of things, because his business is almost entirely hardware repair. But yeah, I mean, documentation for everything I think is mainly where he sits.
Yeah, I just know he's part of that organization because I've heard him talk about it a few times.
Yeah.
And I'm a big believer. I see people say right to repair. I'm definitely on the side of right to repair.
Yes.
A huge fan of that. I've always had. I'm a longtime supporter of the EFF. I don't remember my stickers on the wall over that tells me what status. I give them enough money that I have some type of diamond or whatever status I have. That's definitely one of the organizations I continuously donate to. But I've always had those stickers. You own it, you pwn it. That's not new. That is a long time. My first hacker conference was all the way back in 2002. So I've been on that side of the world for a minute.
The over under for new hardware that I own before it becomes unlocked, jailbroken, or whatever else is like 2 years. Like I'll buy a new phone and then I'm like, cool, I'm gonna run this phone, and then 2 years later I'm like, I wonder what I could do with this phone. That's the natural cycle of things for me.
Oh yeah. I've reflashed the firmware on cameras, like whatever it is I'm playing with. Speaking of which, like this has been one of my latest toys. These are
a little e-ink display.
Well, not only e-ink display, there's no batteries on it. You flash this with NFC.
Right.
These are the WaveShare ones. I always like tinkering with this stuff and playing with it and coming up with ideas. This has a magnetic backing on it because what I do is I swap out the different codes and things that are on it, and I stick it in my conference badges. And so
nice.
We have a lot of shenanigans we play with identity, which includes stealing this. So my business partner, every year, he steals the CEO's badge. And they just got a new CEO, so stealing the badge of the new CEO is eye on the prize and where his target was.
Yeah.
But one of the things I do was, it turns out, because they put QR codes, if you haven't been to one of these vendor junket conferences, the vendors, hey, can I scan your badge?
Scan your badge, right.
Yeah, scan your badge. But what I do is I scan other people's badges and I replace it. The weirdest thing to me, vendors don't ask why this is in my badge. It's just a different QR code. It's someone else's QR code. I literally scanned off of theirs and I reflash it. So people scan me. I'm like, oh, of course you can scan me.
Yeah, of course, scan me. Oh, here, scan this one too. Here, scan this one too. Here, scan this one too.
The vendors working the booth, they have quotas to meet for how many scans they get.
Right.
So they run around scanning because they want to get their quota. And I've got other people. I put my wife's badge in there because my wife's a vendor.
Yeah.
So I scanned her badge and didn't tell her. And then I put it on there. And you know where this is going.
Yes.
You should see the message I got. She goes, did you scan my badge? Well, first she's like, did you steal my badge? I was like, nope, you still have it. She's like, why are people calling me?
No. You text her back and go, what badge?
Yeah.
Yes.
So, the shenanigans. It's funny because they're emailing her at her company address, which also makes it great because it's other vendors emailing her.
Yeah. Hey, I heard you were interested in. Yeah.
Yeah. Which if they look up her name, they're like, wait a minute, you're a vendor.
Yeah. That's great.
Yeah. I have a great amount of fun with this.
Yep. I've been talking to a number of people. Like I am a very huge fan of OSINT, of open source information gathering. It's why I'm a huge fan of oh gosh, what's his name? We both know him.
Hammond,
yeah, John Hammond.
Yeah.
Yep. Is a lot of the things that he does on OSINT, and I carry a Flipper Zero with me almost everywhere, and people go, why do you need that? And it's like, I scan every hotel card I've ever been given into this thing, every every time I go to an arcade and buy 50 tokens, every time I go to this place, I will scan that badge and I will figure out how it works. And the cool thing is, over the last 2 years, security has gotten monumentally better over a lot of these things. Hotel badges used to be boop, and then I walk up to a building door and go boop, and I walk in, regardless of the time of year. I've scanned into a room that I previously gotten at a hotel 2 years prior because I had that hotel's badge scanned in here, and I just went boop. Oh yeah, that still works. Okay, cool. But I've noticed over the last 12 months, we're starting to see HID encryption for a lot of prox cards. And so you'll scan a card and it goes, oh, this card is encrypted. You can still decrypt that card if you're near a reader, which you need to trigger a read with the original card and place this in between, and you can get the decrypt code. But then it's still a rolling code, and so the next time you come, that badge is still invalid. And it's like, I love to see it. I can't scan that badge anymore, and I love that. But I've also gone to arcades, where if you don't know how arcades work, this is really fun if you have a Flipper Zero. The cards have a certain amount of currency on them, and you scan them on a machine, and the machine goes, oh, you have $4.45 remaining. Cool. I will go ahead and play this game. I'm now going to rewrite another value to your card that says you have 75 cents less. As long as you don't ever rewrite that card, you can scan that card unlimited times.
Yep.
So I may have gotten 100 free plays at skee ball before. I'm just saying.
You're gonna love this. What happened at the developer conference I was at last year, early this year, because it's the Code Mash, which happens in Ohio. It is a close enough one because it happens in Ohio. It happens in Sandusky, home of Cedar Point. The conference is all about code development, but they also have essentially community run in the hall a laser tag event. The laser tag event, we figured out pretty quickly that the way it worked was once you were shot, you don't have a timer. You have to go all the way back to the spawn point and tap. Yeah. We figured out the tap was NFC.
But if the tap is an HID, boop, I'm now alive again. Yeah.
We ended up helping the team out. So we had the healers. We decided to call ourselves
medic.
Yeah, we were like the medics because instead of having to go all the way to the spawn point, we could just take our Flipper Zeros and just tap people's stuff. And we decimated the other team, and it was amazing. Because they didn't know how we were doing it, and it was like after it was done, we had to tell them because it's a coding conference. We're like, turns out, folks. We also had one where you know how you get the power-ups because of the IR sensors? We had that too. Yeah. We were doing the power-ups so you could get like the faster blasting, and yep. That worked too. Yeah. You don't tell him first, you decimate them, then you tell them why. Right. That's the fun part of it.
Right. But yeah, no, I have so many key doors saved in my Flipper. I have an 8 gig card in here, which is absolutely insane. But I have like a gigabyte worth of files on here.
Yeah, it's just a thing you do.
Text strings, a gigabyte worth of text strings that I scanned in person.
There's a Lena is what she goes by. She's in the security community, but she also drives a McLaren. And
yes, I know her. Yeah. She's Kansas City. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
And she showed how to open her McLaren with it and stuff like that, which was hysterical.
Yeah. No, she's great. She's one of my favorite follows.
She's definitely a fun person to follow. That's the only reason I still go to Twitter is I don't post much there, but I do follow Lena because she's not anywhere else. I don't think she's on Bluesky yet.
I don't think so. Yeah, she's one of the few that I tried to convert to Bluesky and I haven't seen on there yet.
Nope.
So,
I want to say though, there's when I was at, because I'm gonna go there not this weekend, but next weekend I'm going to MISEC. So I guess I'm kind of wrong. We do have two conferences. We have Code Mash, which is only about 2 hours from me, and MISEC, which is about 2 hours from me. Still not in Detroit, but within 2 hour drive is actually. I don't have to get on a plane. That's what makes
close
Tom happy.
enough. Yeah,
close enough. So there's a hacker conference I'm going to 2 hours away. But I remember because I have a Tesla, and all of our Teslas, because me and several people drove them there, all the little lids were open last year because of the stupid hack they had where you could make the flap open for the charging port. So all of us had their charge. It doesn't have to have the car unlocked to do it. Yeah, so all of us had open charging ports because someone went through the parking garage next to the hotel and did all of them. Every Tesla you passed had an open charging port.
Yep.
It'll happen again, I'm sure. I don't think that's been fixed. I don't think it can be fixed. So,
yeah. No, on older models, that will not be fixed.
Yeah. Dogma. Dogma's, didn't I see in the news? I think it's, 25 years old now for Dogma?
God, yeah. Yeah. Little J Silent Bob, yeah.
Yep.
That hurts a little bit, doesn't it?
Yeah. So it turns out, because of an awful human being that is in jail, Mr. Weinstein, that if you didn't know this, Dogma, because of all the licensing rights he held, never got released. So I had to find a copy to rip so I could add it to my library of things. So
hello, old friend.
Hello, old friend.
Yeah.
And my son wanted to see. He had not seen it. So my son has been fascinated by some of the classic movies that I watched, and he really enjoys them. So he enjoyed Dogma with me. We watched it like just a couple weeks ago. It's been kind of cool. But that's
digging back into like the MGM archives. You've got Hackers.
He has not watched that, so that is.
Oh, you got to watch Hackers.
Yeah.
Frickin' Johnny Lee Miller, Angelina Jolie, Penn Jillette, Stephen Fisher, Matthew Lillard. Like, holy crap, the names in that movie.
Yes.
There's also what was billed at the time as Hackers 2, but is the Kevin Mitnick story. It is Operation Takedown. Have you seen that one?
Maybe not.
It was made in like 96, 97.
Probably
and is
not
like
then.
it is like a mockumentary about Kevin Mitnick. And it is also an equally good movie. Made in like the 90s hacker style. There's a lot of inflection, a lot of like circuit board cities and macro camera work and crap like that. But definitely worth a watch. It gives a great little tale of Kevin Mitnick.
So my friend, the one that we were talking about IRC earlier,
yes,
hacker. It's funny because whenever people ask what he does, he starts with like, "Have you seen the movie Hackers?" And there's a pretty good number of people have seen it, so they're like, "Oh yeah, that's what you do." He goes, "No, that's what I wish I did."
Right. My mom thinks I do what I actually do.
Yeah. He goes, "That's what I wish I did. That's what got me into hacking." Turns out that's not actually at all what I actually end up doing for a living. Yeah. I mostly just stare at the computer screen blankly for a long time.
Yeah.
I think I might have pictures because it just dawned on me. Me and him were messing with all the messed up locks that vendors have things they put in boxes like to win prizes. And me and him, back to the badge stealing, turns out you can bypass security by getting colored lanyards. The colored lanyard lets you get into the vendor area when you're not supposed to be in a vendor area. So if you swap the lanyard, you get in there.
Yes.
We went and messed with me and him, because it was just funny. We were messing with the lock boxes that the vendors had. Now, I don't want to steal anything from the vendors. There's expensive things, and there was bottles of whiskey in there and things like that. So what we would do is we would open a box and put something else in there so we wouldn't damage the goods. We just add to the goods and then lock it again. Because I love the old school hacker shenanigans. I'm not about stealing anything. I'm like, to show you I did it,
right,
confuse you in some way, and then you come in, you're like, wait, there's an expensive bottle of whiskey, it's still there, but there's also 3 empty beer cans.
Right. Yeah,
but the box is locked.
I am totally about the old school hacker mentality of here's my calling card.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah. It's just calling card. I was here. I just want to let you know.
Right.
Your lock sucked. Here's the beer can I left in there.
Yeah.
You got the key. You can get it out. No damage done.
We were here for 2 hours. Here's an empty beer can. Have fun.
This is what we wandered around doing.
That's right. Yeah, that is my type of hacking. That is the hacking that I like.
Just the shenanigans.
I don't mind walking around and jiggling on locked doors and, you know, trying every prox card I've ever scanned on whatever random hotel door or whatever else. Yeah. And as soon as it clicks, go, okay, cool, I got my fun. Like, I don't even need to look inside. I just need to hear that tumbler flip on me, and I got my kicks.
I see someone mention War Games. By the way, despite being an 80s film, so not even 90s, all the way in 80s, that holds up.
It really does.
They even talk about little details that the way he covers his tracks, you watch it, you're like, someone really put the time in to concepts that were not well accepted. Like this is like his level of OPSEC is really good. And you're like, no one knew what OPSEC was. That's not a word we used then, but you watch the movie, you're like, wow. Like that's mentioned in there, like the methodologies, the tactics are mentioned in there, and it's pretty good.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. The attack vectors, you would call them from a layman's standpoint. Yeah. Same thing with hackers. They and if you look at like modern TV, what is the
Mr. Robot?
Mr. Robot, yeah, there you go. Yep. Where they actually use like real world Unix exploits to demonstrate real world hacks. Like, is it 100% real to life? No, but the hack they're demonstrating is a real world vulnerability that did exist at some point in time for a major organization, and this is based in fact. The reason hackers have survived so long was a lot of it really was that type of environment. Hey, can we get this person's name into a, looking for love, classified ad somewhere? And can we mess with this guy? Like a lot of it was, here's a calling card. Oh, by the way, I know this was me, but you're going to get about 90 calls in the next 24 hours.
Yep. So interesting because like they said that Mr. Robot hired consultants. Correct.
Yes.
One of the consultants they hired was Dave Kennedy from Trusted Sec.
Yes.
And he's an interesting guy. He keynoted at a couple of the conferences I was at. I know him. I've talked to him a few times. My business partner does business with him, so my company does. We refer them. So it's interesting because I've had conversations with him. Dave's a super nice guy, and my business partner does the We Hack Health with him. He's part of his health and fitness group. That's how I know Dave. And I know him from Trusted Sec as well, but I didn't know until later that he was a consultant. And I think at the last hacking conference is where I was having a conversation with him about it, which was kind of fun.
Yep.
It was full circle of fun things. As a matter of fact, if you dig around on my channel, you'll find me going through the puzzle solving of Mr. Robot. That video
nice.
Is all the way from like 2016. I walked people through how to solve the Mr. Robot puzzles because before I really built my YouTube channel, I threw random things on there.
Yeah.
And I left that one up because that one's novel. Like it's fun. I was like, my hair's a lot less gray. So I should share screenshots
we both have that
out of
problem, don't we?
Yeah. The every time one of my staff does this, like there's a joke now in the office in Slack. Hey, I found the solution to the problem, and the not gray-haired version of Tom had the answer because that means you're referencing an old video. To like, I found your 2018 video that answers the question I was looking for on something about ZFS or something about some esoteric thing. And I always laugh because everybody's like, grab a screenshot. Hey, look, it's not gray-haired Tom. I'm like, hey, thanks, guys.
Yay! That's funny. Jeff's beard showing a few gray hairs. Thank you for noticing.
Yeah, I think all my gray came in the last 2 years myself. So
Yeah, when I first met you, you had a lot less. You're very distinguished now. How do we say that?
We'll go with that.
Yeah, you're very distinguished now. What's funny is like I've got a full head of hair. I've always had really good hair. I don't know if you can see it on camera, but I have a streak of gray right here, and then on the back of my head, I have another one right about here, and I have moles on my head in which I have zero pigment in the skin there. And so the hair has grown out gray there since I was about 12 years old. Now, my beard is starting to catch up. Like they're starting to be more gray than I'm used to. Which does take some getting used to. I'm not going to lie, but I also don't hate it. So,
yeah, my wife was like, do you want to diet? Or she didn't really say should, but she's like, do you want to do this or that? I'm like, no. Part of my wife's
your wife said,
career
I would
path-
support you if you decided to.
Yeah. Well, part of her career path was she decided to be a licensed cosmetologist, hair cutter person, whatever that's called.
Yeah.
I don't know. She did that for a minute, and then she's back in working in sales now. But she's like, I could do it for you, and I'm like, no.
Yeah.
Because once you start doing it, you can't stop doing it. Therefore, that sounds like maintenance. I'm a low maintenance person.
That's exactly right. I told my wife very early on, if I go 100%, like my wife and I started dating when I was 17. We've been together for a minute. I have told her from the very beginning, if my hair decides to go full gray, or if I start really recessing, like all of a sudden I'm Captain Picarding it and trying to pretend I'm not, I will literally just shave my head. I will go 100% bald with a beard, and that's going to be my look. At 17, I still had like mustache and soul patch and goatee. This is a much more recent edition, but it's like I kind of like this, but at the same time it's like I'm also not going to fight this. If this goes, it's going to go, and I'm just going to own it.
Yeah, my wife said I can't George Carlin it, so if it goes here, it's got to go from the back too. I can't just
right. Yeah, you can't halfway down. Like that doesn't work.
Yeah. Which I am the only non-follically challenged person on the management team now. I'm the only one who still has hair, which is a joke. Especially because I'm the second oldest, well, third oldest on our management team.
Yeah.
And but even the guys younger than me, they have no hair. It's just Matt's one of the partners, and Matt lost his hair. He's in his 30s. It's gone, completely.
Yeah.
There's not even much left here. He just
I am still in my 30s, but not by much, and I do notice the widow's peak getting a little taller every year. And so one of these days I'm going to show up and it's just going to be here down is still here.
Yep.
And then here up is not. And that's just how you're going to know me from now on. That will be a day.
That just happens. I'm hoping I go the route of my grandfather. He was in his 80s and still had a full head of hair. So.
My great grandfather and my grandfather were both in their 80s. My great grandfather lived to 94, surviving quadruple bypass surgery, and still had hair on the top of his head.
Wow.
And then my grandfather still alive in his late 70s right now, and still kicking, and still has a full head of hair. I'm still jealous of his hair. And it's if I follow that route, I'm gonna be okay.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. I don't think about it too much. Most of the reason my hair's long is because I just never cut it. It's people recognize me from high school because I look like this in high school. Mm-hmm. It just wasn't gray then. Well, at one time it was really long and I used to braid it because it would go partway down my back, and I trim it before it goes down my back now.
Yeah. I've never gotten quite shoulder length, but earlier this year I was down to mid jaw, although I would always slick it back. And so people didn't realize how long it actually was. If I flipped my hair forward, my bangs were down below my mustache earlier this year.
Mm.
So,
I don't know. Not the part of the thing I just want to play with technology.
I just want to play with tech. I don't want to think what people think of me.
No. But there's certainly what's that other I really like him, Jordan. I can't remember his last name. He does some music stuff, but he also does some really good science videos. He posts on Twitter once in a while, but I can't remember his last name right now. Yeah.
Yeah.
He's got one of his eyebrows through the middle, probably because, like you said, the pigmentation thing. It's gray. So he'll do a video about a product or something in the music industry. He's like 30 comments about the product, 400 comments about my eyebrow. just YouTube people cannot resist talking about how we look.
Yes. I thought as a male I would avoid most of that comment talk. However, it has hit me, and some of the people know right where to hit you, and it's a vulnerability I never knew existed, but does exist, and I hate those people. And I also absolutely abhor what those comments would be aimed at if I were a woman.
Mm-hmm.
I have women friends in tech, and the comments that I've read on their behest to shield them from the comments.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Fun.
Yeah, as Michael says, we knew when Jeff changed his glasses.
When I got glasses, there was a lot of comments because I didn't surrender to the fact that, well, there was one or two things going to happen. I needed to have my arms lengthened because I can read things at a distance. So I'm holding my phone like this.
Yeah.
And I realized, okay, maybe I have a problem. Things close up were so blurry, I was unable to read them. So I was like, my phone is hard to read at this length, but at this length I can read my phone.
Right.
So I had to admit I needed glasses, and that certainly brought out the comments on things.
Yeah.
On to another topic, because if anyone's wondering, I do have an onion in my hand. And the reason I have an onion in my hand is this is a security onion.
Nice.
So I did a video. I did a video of security, and I forgot to put this in it. I realized after I already published a video, and I'm not going to go back because the video is not sponsored. And I like to declare always if a video is sponsored, but I also declare when a video is not sponsored. I just happen to know Doug Burke and the guys, but I thought about it later. I'm like, oh, I should have this in here. And I had a clip, and then I cut it out, and I was going to do a new one that. It's not sponsored, but they did give me a squishy ball that looks like an onion. So this is my compensation. Actually, what they did was at the conference I was at, they were throwing them at people. They were throwing because he's like, look, he goes, I don't want to package these up. And so he had a box of them, and he's like throwing them into the crowd. He's like, just catch onions, guys. And it was like, I got one. Actually, I got a few, and my son has the other ones.
Yeah.
Squint until you see it. Yeah, that was...
Yeah. I have had glasses since I was 12 years old, and my glasses story is a little bit different than most. I do have astigmatism, but I also got the streptococci virus in both of my eyes.
Ooh.
That permanently damaged the muscles in my eyes. And so it's not that I can't see at certain distances, it's that my eyes can no longer focus at certain distances depending on the muscle strength within the cornea.
Oh.
And so some days I can come downstairs and I can read my monitor and I have absolutely no problems. Like I can live without glasses 4 days out of 7, probably. But if my eyes get tired, if the muscles can no longer work, and it is a muscle and there is strain there, like right now I took my glasses off, I cannot read the monitor in front of me. And if I like really strain, if I really like try to focus my eyes, I can get it to focus there, but then I lose the far distance, and then it'll take me another day to regain the far focal length. And so my glasses just snap everything into focus. And it's actually like a muscle issue at this point. It's a physical impairment at this point. It's not a inability to focus. It's an inability to regularly focus. So yeah, I've had these since I was 12. Yeah, people noticed when I got new glasses a couple of times. I used to have frameless bottoms, and then I got framed bottoms, and they're like, "You're like a new person now," and I'm like, "It's like 2 grams worth of metal. Like, could we be okay? Is everyone gonna be okay?"
I've gotten to where I just wear them all the time. That way, I'm not putting them on when I have to look at my phone. Of course, when I don't have them on, I quit looking at my phone. So
yeah,
but. One of the things that's nice, I think me and you talked about this a while ago, is when you work heavily in IT for a long time in the service space and you're on call, et cetera, you have like this almost anxiety that comes with it. And one of the reasons I was so happy as you were when you kind of exited from being...
Did you come with anxiety, or was the anxiety added on?
Yeah, exactly. It's hard to say. Once you're out of the escalation path, it takes a long time to not do it. I mean, right now, I realize my phone, because it's now at 11:45 each night. Because I go to bed sometime around midnight or so, 1 a.m. My phone turns off. It goes into its like do not disturb, grayed out, colored mode.
Yep.
Only emergency calls could come through, which there are none anymore. Like it's only family. The only family members are the only people who call me. And I don't really have many family members left that would call me for an emergency. So
yeah, I'm out of that escalation path too, which is awesome.
Yeah, so it's good. Nice. I don't think about my phone anymore. There's no more. I don't think. As a matter of fact, it's been nice because when I go camping and that, because people are like, "Are you going to get Starlink?" I'm like, "No, I go camping to not be by the internet."
Yeah,
like I am forced to go out and touch grass.
I have Starlink, and I do have a trailer, and we do bring the Starlink with the trailer, but at the same time, we also have 3 children, ages 3 through 11.
Yes, different use case.
And one of them is still homeschooled, and so during the week we can take the trailer somewhere, and they can connect to their school, and they can do all this other stuff, and I can edit a video or whatever else remotely. And it just kind of works. Like, we can get away from the house for a couple of days and we can still function. And also, Starlink acts as a backup to my main internet, which is Comcast, which does fail from time to time. And based on the sponsorship that I had of Talking Heads for a while, if Starlink covers 2 out of 52 episodes 2 out of 50 episodes per year, because we usually take 2 weeks off, it pays for itself.
Yeah.
So I pay for Starlink.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
I just open up the Raspberry Pi 5 box so I can admire it up close.
I don't have a Pi 5 yet. I have a bunch of Pi 4s. I have a bunch of Pi 3s. I've got a Pi 400 or 2 sitting around here. I don't have a Pi 5 yet.
Yeah. It's a beautiful piece of technology.
Yeah.
They were all out of cases at Micro Center, so I will order it. But yeah, I'm excited to I love all the different mini computers and stuff like that. They're just so novel to me that we have this much compute power at the power level. Like, this thing has probably got more processing power than the RS6000 unit that I used to manage. Like all the Unix stuff and AIX.
No question.
Yeah, it was crazy because that was. I remember we bought that server and it was right around like $50,000 or $60,000. It was insane.
Yeah.
That managed all of our database management and everything else. And like you could do that on a Raspberry Pi now, 25 years later, and it's in a little box. And I paid $59. I think it was on sale for $59 for the 8 gig one. They have on sale at Micro Center, so I went there.
Nice.
Well, and because there's a sponsorship thing, but yeah, just kind of a. Yeah, I'm excited to poke at it and play with it and see what it can do.
I have been a Raspberry Pi adopter from the very beginning. In fact, I have a Chinese manufactured 256 megabyte original Raspberry Pi Model B. I also have Model A's. I have British manufactured Model B 512 megabytes. I have basically every Pi that's ever been manufactured because I was such an early adopter. And I use them for business uses, but outside of what you would normally consider business uses. I used to run a small photo business that a family friend of mine runs a haunted house. I use the Raspberry Pis to control a DSLR to take pictures of you inside the haunted house and then sell you those pictures Disneyland style.
That's super cool.
And that was 2011 that I did that. And I wrote all the software myself, and I wrote all of the interconnect myself and designed the networking and everything else. And the amount of compute that you got in a Raspberry Pi in 2011 for $35, holy freaking crap.
Yeah. This weird project I have back here. Pull it up.
Like modern day people, you're going, oh, it's only quad core. Oh, piss off.
So this is a red and white e-ink display. That displays my what's going on in terms of like how many YouTube subscribers.
Nice. Yeah.
And there's a Raspberry Pi Zero driving it.
Nice.
It just connects to a display. Oh, by the way, this is a battery backup. Just I stuck a sticker on it, but it's just a standard battery that runs it. So if I want to take it off and tell you like and subscribe to my channel, blah, blah, blah,
right.
I can hold it like this without rebooting the Pi and then plug it back in.
Yeah,
it's running on battery right now.
It just displays, right?
Yeah. And if you type in Raspberry Pi Zero e-ink display, and by the way, this is just a picture frame. There's nothing special really here about it. This was not an expensive project. Wasn't a hard project to do at all. And yeah, it just auto updates my subscriber count because that's cooler than the plaque, I think, because the plaque is static. This has got numbers on it.
No, that's super cool. I've looked at building something similar myself for dynamic updating of subscriber counts. Like my plaque is over on the other side of the office because I try to keep the background kind of dynamic. I want it to change. I want it to look different. And the plaque was cool to me in 2019. It's not so cool in 2024. It's the same plaque 5 years later.
Yeah. The couple of use cases I think are really nice. And I like this for e-ink displays in general. This is one of the AirNet 4s that tells me come on, focus. There we go. CO2 status that's going on in my office. I think these are e-ink displays because they're super low power. They lend themselves well to things like status displays, like, hey, what's the weather going to be? And I've seen a lot of people do them for that, where it just gives you what the forecast is. It doesn't need to draw fast. It's whenever you're glancing at it. If it updates, once an hour to let you know what the hourly forecast is, not a bad thing.
We might be doing gas sensors for a future revision of Axe Effect.
Oh, there you go. I really like. Now I can't remember. I went down a rabbit hole before I ended up choosing the AirNet. This one's expensive, by the way.
Yeah.
Especially relatively compared to all the other sensors out there. AirNet uses a very specific sensor model, and it is way, way more accurate in the way it measures CO2 concentration compared to other ones. Apparently, this is really, really popular in Europe. That's where the company is based out of that makes this. And the reason why, didn't know this, and I got educated on a live stream. So it turns out in other countries, someone actually cares about the CO2 levels of the restaurants and pubs you go to.
Yes.
That's not a thing in the U.S. No one comes in and measures that, but these are common for people to buy in Europe to make sure you're complying with the proper amount of air ventilation on there.
Yes.
And what cued me on to even getting this was back to Jeff Geerling.
Yeah.
Jeff Geerling connected me with the people that make, what is this called? This is the Air Gradient. So this is the box that Jeff had. Look up Air Gradient, and you'll find Jeff has done several videos on this. You can tie it in a Home Assistant. So I got one of these as well that measures the CO2. And what Jeff had realized when he built his studio down in a basement, you can have, especially in a basement, a buildup of CO2. Once it reaches a certain level, you get a little lethargic. You just don't have enough oxygen. You're not in risk of dying, but the health effects from it are like, I'm kind of tired now.
Right.
I'm feeling a little bit uninspired. And
as someone who lives in a basement, yes.
Yeah. So now I take closer care of measuring and created methodologies to mitigate. Basically, you open a window.
Right.
It sounds fancy when I say, I made a mitigation. I opened a window whenever the thing goes off. I think Jeff was more automated
You're
than me. And he thought,
Microsoft issuing an update at this point.
yeah, I just open Windows so Tom doesn't die. You got to.
We turned a 0 to a 1. That's all you did. Don't sugarcoat this bullshit.
we got to keep the meat computer going. So. Yeah.
Yeah, but living in a basement, that is one of the things we are actively looking at is would Axe Effect benefit from having a gas sensor as part of its suite of tools? And we're looking at the Wi-Fi version in particular. If it adds $1 to the cost of the Wi-Fi version, but we could sell it for the same price, and now you could get temperature, humidity, pressure, and also volatile chemicals. Maybe that's a value add depending on your deployment.
Yeah. Is radon a thing in your area?
Radon's a thing in our area.
Yep.
I also live in a basement. So yes. We like airflow and we don't like radioactive cement.
Yep.
So yeah, I don't know if we're looking primarily at a lot of the Bosch sensors that they manufacture. I don't know if they make a radon sensor, but that might be fun to see if they do.
The nice thing is it's not a concern here where I'm at specifically, but in Michigan there are areas. Most of Michigan is a different type of ground, but there's a couple niche areas that do have radon, so you got to do mitigation. Yeah,
no, radon is a huge concern here in Oregon. So.
Yeah, if you're in an area with a lot of the harder grounds and granites, you have more radon in general. Yeah, I think that's how it works. Yeah. Someone can double check the science on that. Don't quote me on it. I'm not a scientist and I'm not your scientist. So
this goes double for legal advice.
Yes. I've said that a few videos. I'm not a lawyer and I'm certainly not your lawyer. Mm-hmm. I'll add, because when I've put some of the things out there for the business stuff, I have very specifically said, no good legal defense starts with this guy on YouTube said so. Therefore, check with your local attorneys.
As I mentioned earlier, the legal defense of nuh-uh is not a legal defense.
Is not a legal defense.
Which is my favorite definition, because you can't disprove a negative. It's literally impossible. And so if you're accused of something, nuh-uh isn't a legal defense, even though it probably should be. Starbuck Tech says, but Tom said.
But Tom said. Yeah. Not the way to start things
But
out.
Did you stay at a Holiday Inn Express last night?
Although the dumbest in-person legal defense that I ever heard. So this goes back a number of years, but it's such a funny, stupid story. A drunk driver ran into my vehicle, and it was an older truck, but I was in building hot rods back then. Uh-huh. And drunk driver rear-ended it, totaled it. It was just wrecked.
Yeah.
And after she bounced off the truck, she hit a fire hydrant, which oddly didn't do the water thing, or it would have been epic. I would have been amazed, but that didn't happen.
Right.
Cool thing is I grabbed my SLR camera and took pictures of the entire shenanigans that were going on, because when she hit the fire hydrant, she ripped the wheel off her car and then thought she could leave.
Then spent like 40 minutes going, ah!
He was like, forward, backwards.
Yeah.
I reached into her car, and my neighbor at the time, which I'm still friends with, because this happened in 2006.
Yeah.
And I'm still friends with the guy. He was a cop, and he runs out, and he's in his pajamas, and he's like, whoa, because you hear all the noise. And so I reach in the car, take her keys, toss it over. Anyways, she is blitzed, and she's trying to get away until I took her car away. And then she says, give me those back. And I said, no. And then she staggered out of the car and fell over. Didn't take long for the police to get there. And first answer is the cop goes, didn't I just arrest you the other day? And she starts laughing. Then when the ambulance people, which I thought was weird, are the ones who gave her the breathalyzer. And I remember the statement. The guy goes, wow, look at this, and showed it to the other guy in the ambulance, and she can still stand, is what he said. Yeah. And I said, what is it? And he said,
new high score.
Can't tell you. Yeah, like new high score. Yeah. Well, anyways, they take her away. They drag the car away, and I have to go to small claims court. Well, this is where she shows up to small claims court because she disputes the value of my vehicle. Because it was older. So the judge even said, "You seem like you're asking a lot." I'm like, "Look, I'm into building hot rods. So even though the truck was just in primer, from you could tell from the pictures, I said, yeah, it's a hot rod truck, and I had a cool engine in it and things like that. Now it's kind of destroyed. I'm
Yeah.
gonna take the engine out, but I didn't tell Judge that.
Right.
So
that doesn't matter. The thing
Yeah.
that it was in was destroyed, which means the
Yeah.
thing is destroyed. Right.
this is where it gets really funny. He looks at her, and he goes, "What do you have to say?" He goes, "Do you think it's not worth it?" She goes, "I don't think I'm responsible for that at all." And Judge goes, "Well, you were arrested after hitting his truck." And she goes, "I know that. That is what the paperwork says." And there's a judge pauses. He goes, "And?" She goes, "I was so drunk, I don't remember. And I shouldn't have to pay for things I don't remember doing." Judge is like, he pauses. He goes, "That's not an actual defense."
Tom, anything else before I just slam the gavel down? Like,
Yeah. And he's just like staring at her. And she goes, "Well, I was so drunk, I was blacked out." And he said, "Okay, I shouldn't have to pay for things I did when I was drunk," is what she then said again. And he says, "Well, that isn't how it works. I'm not even going to dispute the price at this point." That's what he said. He goes, "You can have it." He goes,
and
"You have
we're
anything
done
else?"
here. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what he said. And we're done. She goes, "Well, that's not fair." He goes, I don't know what to say to you," is what he said to her. The judge is trying to hold back his laughter, which is also, he wasn't angry at all. He was actually had this smirk on his face. He's like, and I heard him kind of under his breath as she was being let out. He goes, "This is the dumbest thing I've heard today." Just, maybe ever. He was just like shaking his head. He was just like, "What?" It was just like,
I have a similar anecdote to that, and I think maybe we'll close on this because it is 9:00. We're an hour past close, so let's. So I used to work for a guy, really great guy. He was the kind of guy who drove his truck into the ground. He had like a 98 Ranger in 2015, like it was ready to be put under probably 6 years prior. And he's like, "No, it still runs and it still drives, and I drive it 12 miles a day. What's the big deal?" He parked it on the street every single day. Well, a drunk driver came down and decided to play ping pong with all the cars on the street. And he calls up his insurance and says, "Hey, this drunk driver who's been arrested, who we have all the information on, ran into my truck, and I need this to be dealt with." And the insurance said, "Okay, cool." And he goes, "But here's the deal. I'm leaving the country on vacation for 2 weeks in 7 days. So you can either deal with this claim within the next 7 days, or we can deal with it when I get back. Because I don't have time for that, and I'm not abiding time for that. I'm leaving on vacation. I'm going to see my daughter, who lives in Laos right now. And we will be dealing with it when I get home." And they said, "Okay." He gets a call, and we're in a giant meeting. There's like 12 of us in this meeting. He gets a call from his insurance the day before he's supposed to leave, and they want to deal with it now. And so he's on the phone, and the only 2 times I've seen him angry were that time and the time of my job interview, which was a very similar instance, but not like personally related to him, where I was like 15 minutes late to my job interview, and he's on his BlackBerry standing on the street corner in the pouring rain going like, "Oh, is that the way it is? Yeah, no, I told you the way it is." And then he hangs up the phone and he goes, "Are you ready?" That's how I got introduced to this guy. And so for like 10 years, I've been sweating like, is this guy going to come back out? This guy came back out, and it was great. So the insurance calls, and he goes, "I'm so sorry." And he picks up the phone and he goes, "Yeah, but I told you I'm going to be, but I'm not going to be here this week." And so they're wanting to take him to court and do all these other proceedings and everything else. And he's like, and at one point he goes, "Oh, I'm sorry. Was this my problem to deal with? Am I the one who started this? Or was it your client who ran drunkenly into my truck?" And he just goes on a 5-minute tirade about that. And it was the best thing I've ever seen in my life.
That is great. Hey, those Rangers were great trucks, though.
Yeah.
They lasted forever.
It was like a 98 Ranger. It had like 120,000 miles on it. And it was like, did it hold up the best? No. But the Rangers ran forever as long as you gave them oil and tires.
Yeah.
And he gave it oil and tires because he could afford oil and tires. And here it is in like 2015. The car's 18 years old, and he's like, runs like a top. And someone decided to drunkenly bash into my car, and now they're wanting to give me like 4,000 low Kelly Blue Book. And he goes, no, you're going to give me 15 because that's what it's going to cost to replace the vehicle that I relied on every single day. And
I love my Danger Ranger, man, but I sold it with 250,000 miles on it, the 4-cylinder one. It was unbelievable that it ran as good as it did. It was a 5-speed stick shift. It was we called it we had a little sticker that said Danger Ranger.
Danger Ranger. My father-in-law, he drove a 97 Ranger. When I met my wife in 2000 early, I went, man, your dad's truck's kind of on its last legs, huh? And she goes, yeah, it's a little bit of a beater at this point. And that was just kind of like the thing. Like it started and it ran and it wasn't happy about it, but all he ever had to do was tires and oil. Ever. I replaced the alternator on that thing in 2015. 10 years later.
Yeah.
And it ran for like another 6 years. And he finally sold it to a guy who is still driving it today. And I'm like, I had questions about this car in 2002. It's driving in 2022, and it has had nothing done to it other than the things that I said, you need to do these things to it. And it still runs.
That is great. All right. Well, we're running out.
We are running out.
Eventually. Yeah.
Yes.
It's 12:10 for me.
Yes. Yeah, you are 3 hours plus. So yeah, it is 12:10 for you. It is officially Thursday. It's officially
and I'm gonna
Thursday.
do a live stream on Thursday. So
right.
But that's not for a number of hours.
But it is well past an hour after I usually go. It is 9:10 p.m. My wife actually texted me down and said, "Are you okay?" Yes, I'm okay. But normally I come upstairs and I will watch the dogs during the after party. So I think that's going to be a show. But thank you all so much for watching on kind of an impromptu show. This was fun. Thank you for jumping on, Tom.
Ping me sometime. We'll do it again. Someone says, because Tom and Jeff both like cars. So definitely a topic we can chat around about. Not tonight, but some other time.
We could talk for days about cars.
We both are car enthusiasts. It is a hobby. So.
Yeah. In fact, I have a recent car story, which is kind of fun, related to like a mechanic who wanted to overcharge me. And then I ended up spending $12 and fixed the issue. So we'll tell that one on a future date. I'll get you on and we'll talk about that story.
I'm all for it.
Yes.
All right, man. Take care. Thanks for having me on, and exit us out, Jeff.
Absolutely. Thank you all so much for watching episode 239. I want to say 230. Good Lord, 359 of Talking Heads. I don't know where I got 2, and I don't know where I got 3, but 359 of Talking Heads. Join us every Wednesday night at 6 p.m. Pacific time for the latest in beer and tech news. Follow me on Craft Computing if you don't already. Subscribe to Lawrence Systems over on Tom's YouTube channel. Yep. You can follow us both on social media. I'm at Craft Computing. You are at Lawrence Systems, or are you at Tom Lawrence, or what is the...
I am Lawrence Systems.
Lawrence Systems, okay.
You Google Lawrence Systems, you're going to find me.
Excellent, yeah. Cool. So yeah, at Lawrence Systems on whatever social media platforms exist, you'll find us both. But other than that, if you want to join the super secret after party that takes place on the Discord server, think about joining the Patreon. Link is down in the video description. Gets you exclusive access to that Discord. You can chat with myself, John, Rett, Steve. Heck, even Tom is on our Discord server. You can ping at him.
Feel free to at me. I get lost in Discord, but if you at me, I will appear.
I say the same thing. Like I show up in occasional conversations, but if you at me, I will appear.
Yeah.
So yeah. Yeah, we're both on the Discord, and please feel free to start the conversation and see where it goes.
I may not reply till tomorrow, so I'm going to crash.
Yeah. No, it's midnight there, so give Tom a couple hours before you ping him.
Yep.
Anyway,
I got to reboot.
As always, thank you all so much for watching, and as always, we will see you in the next episode.